Okay, it's gonna happen all the time. That's just the residue of the glue. So, okay, look. So you're just doing a straight line, coming down. But you have to also try and do it as fast as possible. So you don't want to stick your finger and you don't want it to dry.
Now
Okay.
we can put in the one. If we look across here, and you use a little more glue than when you were putting on this one to hold it down really good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, this symposium is the costume design? Yes. Come on, you can.
I'm working the symposium, I just wanted to know.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And you just put a little more glue because the elastic can absorb it properly.
Okay.
So good. So this piece.
You don't want any of the glue coming onto the
See,
table.
I can take this piece now and put it
So-
here. And so, right, so that one.
Okay.
1, 2, 4 pieces.
Right where you are. So you're just gonna do the V part. This is the waist part right here. Alright? For the front. So you're just gonna do the V coming around, coming from this side. Of course, let the fringe come from the outside. V and up to here, okay? And now you're gonna put this on the top of here. You go ahead, I think you're getting it now.
We got 2 pieces.
So it's gonna be right here.
Correct.
And then we're gonna.
I'm gonna my turn, I'm gonna go around, right, and then when we
And then
finish
this
that,
one is gonna
we're
go
gonna go on, exactly, just,
I do glue all the year through. So if some glue go on your nail, it comes off. You can take it off. It comes off easy. So if you want to finish and then take it off, or you can take it off while you're doing it like the way. Okay, so now that we're here,
okay? Okay,
we want
so this is,
to get
So,
this here.
take
So
a
we
look,
have to
come and
put
take a look first
a
at what you're
piece
doing,
of this
so that you know
here,
what you're doing.
here, the left and the right.
So,
Oh.
a costume is basically
Just
built up
take
of,
off the
a
peanut
full
oil.
costume is usually a headpiece, a collar piece, a waist piece, arm pieces, foot pieces, okay? So that builds a full costume. So this is your collar piece. So we're gonna outline it with the braid, and then we're gonna put the paillettes on it. This is your waist piece. This is your head piece. This is your arm piece, and this is your foot piece, which goes right here. So right now we are cutting out your foot piece. Okay. So you see, we're just gonna go all the way around, and we're gonna put paillettes on either side. Okay. So we're gonna, in your bag has braid. So we're gonna start with the braid. Now this braid has a fringe on the outside. So we're gonna put the fringe on the outside of the pattern. It also gives it a, makes it look bigger too. The fringe. So we're gonna grab a glue gun. Shannon, you nearly finished? Almost.
And what we can do sometimes is we can put some
You
glue.
know? And I
Sometimes
think
you get the
you also could put on the
the
headpiece, the paillettes.
non-adhesive.
But this is for the knee, right?
That one, that's the headpiece, not,
Oh.
so,
This
starting
one
off.
Oh.
And then now that you're finished, you can
Sticking here.
throw out all of the
This
rhinestones.
is easier for you, yeah?
Throw the rhinestones out. So this is your department. You get creative however you want to put it. It doesn't necessarily have to be here. It could be here, there, any place you want to put it. That's where you're creative. this one. Where is it?
Oh, here it is.
Right, and test it out here.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, it's working
Press
it
it
out.
down.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna miter it. You're gonna put a
Press
little bit of glue
Am
there.
I gonna cut this one out?
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah,
you
one
can
second,
touch
I'll-
some glue if it doesn't.
Oh, I
And
see.
remember, you have this space here too,
And then you're gonna do it green.
so you can come over here.
So we finished.
Come over here. I'm just putting this here. If you put two, you have to put one.
So we have this one, we have this one.
Figure out
done.
if that you want
This
that,
one, that's
or
done.
if you
So you're
want
gonna cut-
this blue.
Yes.
If you have
So you have your
these,
choke
which would look good at the top.
Yeah. Oh, outline
and
it?
outline it and then cut it out, okay? What does she have? She has this one. So in your bag, you can have the cardboard for. No, the strips.
The strips are here with the glue.
No.
I can imagine I'm looking for this. I put it on there, I put it on there. You see, I bought extra, but I average it because Shannon did everything already, and she still has glue sticks. So 5 glue sticks
Five
would
glue sticks.
cover,
So you have to remember to stick this down. 5 glues will cover one full costume.
yeah. You have extra, right? Shannon, making an average. And we still have extra.
You can either
What
cut it
I
if you
bought
want, or you can
extras.
miter it and shit.
But when you look, no, you have 2.
Oh, I do, okay, good.
Yeah.
Nice work. You okay, Janelle?
Do you want to roll up this, Shannon?
Yeah.
So it can show up there. So just cut off a row and then you have to cut it. Seeing that it's gold, the row, it will show up more.
So no, yeah, give it straight across.
So this is where when you design and you figure, you have stuff and you figure, what do I do with it? Whether you want to put it here, has too much gold, it's not much of a contrast, but
So-
it would fit if you
so
want to
we're gonna
put dots
make-
around here.
this is gonna
And
go the
still go
headpiece,
back
okay?
with these.
So we're gonna take
And
an inch of this. I'm gonna put this here. So we
oh,
have.
no.
What?
Put it from, you glued it already?
No.
Oh,
No.
oh, where's my brain?
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, that's too far, carry it closer to the end.
No, we're doing like an inch in. What? What do you mean?
But half inch because it's just
Okay.
cut, it's just poster board. Just in case you're home, you have to know if you have 5,
Start a little bit.
you know it's only 4 you can use.
Right, you said you're doing a little bit of glue.
Right. So when you put on one side, you put on, you see how many, you know how many. You have a good bit here, you can work with
Keep
this.
going all the way
Some
around.
of this will
And
go
you're
on
moving
the
it around to make sure it fits properly. So I'm moving it around. Okay, go ahead.
You get it? Why are you thinking so hard? You have you stuck this on, you can just do this. You can just create any pattern you want. Sometimes people go around. here and
that way.
I'm just showing you.
Alternating,
This,
okay, that's
but
fine.
you do what you want. This part, when the costume is finished and you complete the pattern, now you get creative and it's up to you.
So you want to work on the, yeah, so we want to stick the table. So let's work on this. Yeah, that's fine. Come on, don't worry. So make sure that you don't get onto the, right, so it's sticking in. So always try to make sure that you get all on the ends here because you don't want it to come off, okay? Right. Mm-hmm. Do we? Right here. Okay, so we get here. Just stick your fan. Just put a little bit of glue there. Smite it a little bit. And then we just okay. No. Okay, here's the one first.
Yeah, they got a little music now to dance.
You can hold it around here. You can put it in here. There we go from the cheese.
You have to just gonna borrow certain sticks.
You have to take off the headpiece, take off the glasses.
But you
Because
can't see without the glasses.
I wear glasses too.
Oh.
So, there's this scarf. Can we take out this scarf? Now you can put back on your glasses and your headpiece. She's there. She's ready.
Now she ready for the room.
Yeah, get some music. Let's see if we can get some music.
Ready for the room.
Just turn it around. Just switch it. Just look the set, yeah. Let's see if we can find some music.
You want some music?
You have soca music?
Soca music? Well, you can DJ if you want. You can give it to the
Yeah,
system.
if you have.
Any kind of music.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
playing little music now.
Hold on, I'm gonna get some right here then.
Listen.
Please.
It's been playing all along. It's been quiet. Do you wanna connect?
sure it's centered. Have you have more elastic?
If I have what?
Another piece of elastic, oh, but yeah.
I got
the lower. Yeah, but,
I cut some pieces.
yeah.
Yeah.
So of course we get in the center. Get the center of the elastic, if you did. Over the center of this. I'm gonna mark it. Now we're gonna stick it. Okay, right. I don't know, I guess. Just trying to get it together, I guess.
Where you can turn around, just go to the end and walk back up, right? Are you getting it? Turn around.
Okay, we connected.
I think I saw Valerie yelling.
So we have the elastic. Hold on. You can load on this one. Huh? You can take this one off.
I know that look, Mr. Gnome. You're worried about getting your home holiday ready. Hosting can be stressful.
When people would laugh and give him money, then people will come and sing to you to get money. Then we have King Sailor. He is fancy. You have the regular sailors off the ship. Those were some of the first costumes too. They used to use sailor clothes. And after a while they get fancy. See, he has cards. And then again, there's an even more fancier one. And then we have the Peregrinaud. His clothes is just stripped. And he tells jokes. And he spells words, like he will say chicken in a car and the car can't go. That's how he spells Chicago. Things like that, he will, play of words. And then we have Dame Lorraine. That is a particular woman. She was shaped like that. In history, they continue to portray her as that. Then you have Bookman. Bookman tells a story. He has the book and he'll read a story for you. Across here we have the blue, right, the Moko Jumbies. We have, and they are still, they call them still walkers. And then we have the Indian. We used to play a lot of Indian man. And then we have the Blue Devils, but they still play Blue Devils. They just, the oil is mixed with a dye, blue dye, but normally they have it with black dye and they will come to you. If you see a good friend who's playing that, they'll come and hug you on the day and your whole will get messed up. So when you see your friend begin to run away, no, the goal of this is to have you and then they will run through people and people just go like, ooh, trying to get away, meanwhile they rub against you. So the goal is getting it. This Blue Devil is called Fire. He's a fire. He says, get fire out of his mouth. So they have the liquid to add to it. And it's just real comical. Again, these are the people that come to you. Then they would look and see anything to anyone and you want them to come back. They will come and say, so how are you? And they will touch you just to bring you into their fold. So this is part of the world. And then as it came along, people used imagination. They played the sky, the moon, and different things to portray. Till now they use feathers, bikini. They said it's hot, so it's less clothes. But in Trinidad, we have every kind of people can wear anything you want. If you want to go beer, you go beer in a bikini, like person, or you can wear covered up. So you can wear a whole bodysuit and then put on what you make. So it's not, if you don't want to be too revealing. Giselle, what do we have to add again? What can you defend?
Yeah, fancy sailor. Really fancy Indians. They also the Indians also have a great part in American carnival. So they have like fancy Indians, which is really an art form to make those costumes. It's really complicated to make those costumes, but they were also part of the old time carnival. And then the Moko Jumbies. The Moko Jumbies also started during the same time when the French built their homes. They were high up, they had the balconies. So for them to actually beg for money and stuff, they were up on stilts. So that they can see, everybody on the balconies and stuff. But it wasn't this high. So that's where still. And still dance, Moko Jumbies, still walkers, they started as young as 2 years old. The short stills, and the older they get, they
I've seen them,
graduate.
yes. I was on Utica at Rainbow, and I saw this girl, and she was like taller than me, this little girl. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I looked, and I'm like, oh, she was still walking.
So it is a great art form, which they teach right here in Brooklyn. You can take part in that. Oh, what we do? Hold on. Which one? So we went through Bookman, so we went through most of it. lot of ruffles and stuff like that. And they also said a lot of the funny jokes themselves. So this book is just really introducing you to all the different. They have something called Jab Jab. And Jab Jab, they had a whip that they cracked, and that is also very funny. It's the Jab Jab and the Blue Devils, and also the Devils, yeah, the Blue Devils. And they also have spit fire out of their mouth, which is quite interesting. It's quite interesting to see them crawling on the ground and spitting fire. I don't know how they do it, but I know everybody use gasoline.
Yeah.
It's gasoline.
It's kerosene.
It's kerosene in their mouth, yes. And they put a flame in front of it and they spit out the kerosene and the fire lights up.
Like pyrotechnics.
But it's
Early pyrotechnics.
I will not be trying that.
Early pyrotechnics.
And we also have the minstrels. And they sing a lot too also. All of them begging for money also.
It was like an art when the carnival they come around to see how much money. It's like Broadway. How they have the Disney characters and they come and you take a picture and you pay them.
Yeah.
This is our version of it. But Broadway is on Broadway is a clear idea of how people dress in Disney. Right? You turn the page to see what again we have.
And there's an imp. The imp is a devil. It's a red devil. Imping a red devil. It's a dragon form, the imp. You see it? You're winning in the dragon band, always behind the dragon. Blue devils of Satan. You're preventing their release. You're holding their reins. You're pulling their chains, taunting and testing. But you're looking, fighting just like them. And I'm going to judge you by your friends. And that's the things that they say to enchant people.
They give speeches.
Speeches, yes.
Preposterous speeches.
That's all. Oh, the dragon. The dragon. This is also a great part. Strong dragons. You see it, 36 steps to cross the water. Watch me make me. Remember from, I can't even pronounce these things, through Chinese Patrick imagination. I come to join the mass vibration. Spitting fire, rolling, scales bristling, tall, swirling. The imp can't keep me lurching. Beware my fire when you see my band passing. So it's all just, what is that? Taunting each other. And a dance, the dragon. It's actually a dance. A dragon dance. So these are all characters that where Carnival started from. And it has evolved into other things now, bigger.
But they still play this.
But yes, we still play these basic characters. But these are
to preserve the original Carnival. But it's equated to get money just the same way the Disney characters on Broadway. Every character that is in Disney World, Superman, all these, and when they want to take a picture with you, they want you to tip them. So some of the goal was getting money.
well, this is the back. You don't have to worry about that.
Anything you want to add?
Not really. Like, I knew a lot about this. I was just more interested in, like, the structuring, like, the construction.
Oh, this is one
yeah,
thing.
it makes it, now it kind of demystifies a lot of it, because I was, like, trying to understand how...
Right, so this is one stage. There are different levels, like in school you go from elementary to intermediate. They have many different
Do you wire bend?
Yeah. I do wire bending, and I design big pieces for parades.
The backpacks?
Yeah, I do backpacks.
That is cool.
Yeah. So it's different levels. What you can do is you can always check with Kat. So she could, Giselle, the course you'll be teaching is this wire bending?
No, I'm teaching at Warwick. I'm teaching costume design, but I do fabric transformation. So they're actually I'm gonna teach how to design their own fabric.
Right.
And then convert it into a costume. So that's gonna be for 6 weeks at Warwick.
Right. So what you can do is you can always check with Valerie Muscat because we are connected with her and she's going, you're not sure when that course is
It
coming.
started next year, after Carnival. After Trinidad Carnival, we start.
Somewhere about the end of February.
I usually go because I judge. I usually go, but I don't know if I'm gonna go because I want to go to Africa for Christmas. Guinea. I want to go to Guinea to learn how to make dye fabrics and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna try. But this is gonna be like a fabric transformation class plus a costume design class. So actually,
Side and the Upper East Side. We're talking 20, we're not talking how much centuries ago, right? So let me break down the global context of why this is, right? So New York City thrive on financial service to run the economy and low-wage services to serve the professional workforce. Therefore, domestic workers make it possible for the employers to go to work, as Vanessa just said. Globalization, you talk about doing global studies and history. Neoliberal policies make it hard for us to support our families where we come from, right? The economic and ramifications with families who are here. So we're on our islands, our parents on the islands. The political landscape is also fast too. So our families who already say, come to the United States, American dollar is boss. Here's what happens when we leave, like workers from India. And I mean, we fought diplomats too, right? This little engine, Domestic Workers United, fought diplomats who instead of wanting to pay their workers, were deciding to send them back to Africa. And we say, no, they're not going back to Africa. They're going to stay right here. And the diplomats are most time immune. They could get a pass. They could kill somebody and get a pass. But we fought diplomats so that the workers could stay here. How big is that, right? So we tell our families come, but you know, under what guise? Because American dollar is boss. So here's what. In India, if they're paying you $200, 200 rupees, they come here to Washington, D.C., the diplomats, and they bring their workers. Hey ladies. Hello. Hi. Yeah. They pay their you all okay? Yeah. What? Sorry?
It's okay, we just set the umbrellas downstairs.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. Yeah, so in India, right? They bring their workers and they pay them 200 rupees in India. When they bring them to Washington, D.C., the diplomats and all the upper people who come to work in the White House or wherever around D.C., they give their workers the same 200 rupees here, which is equivalent to no money. It's exploit. And that's what they do. And we see through that. That we go to the courts, we stand with the workers. As a matter of fact, some years ago, there were two workers in Long Island. They were from Bangladesh. And they were locked in a I think a Catholic home or some kind of a establishment. And they were really abused and taken advantage of. The only way they escaped is one of them came downstairs to buy a paper, and I think a taxi driver was passing by who spoke their language, Bangladeshi language, and was able to understand what was going on in that house in Iceland. And so we showed up to the courthouse. We don't play. Hello. If you tell us your story, we're showing up. And that's what friends are for. I'm telling this to all of you who are friends with each other. That's what we do. We stand with each other. You're not going alone. You're not going to the courts alone. We're going with you. Okay? So, and we talk about global studies, right? Slavery. For more than 2 centuries, our forebear, right? They labored in this country without wages, making cotton balls. They picked cotton, they ate cotton, their children ate cotton for the master on the plantation. They built their master's home while suffering injustices and deplorable humiliation. Yet they thrive. Black folks here, right? They talk about critical race theory. They don't want you all to know the truth about all of this, right? They thrive and made possible through their faith. Because here's what, they were being lynched, they were whipped with whips, their babies were taken away from them, and they were singing, we shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome. My voice is gone. Someday, right? Right, but we shall, the songwriter was saying, we shall overcome. Under the oppressive, exploitative slave situation that they were going in, making the bosses rich and richer again, right? And again, and we're talking about, none of us was born then, right? We're talking about the New Deal, 1930. I've given you a little crash course in history. 1930, the New Deal. We talk about Lyndon B. Johnson, right? Research that when you have time. Your history book. I like history, so research it too. And understand why the conditions are, why they fall us up to today. And that we still have to pay. We have to still work hard for reparation. Reparation is not just money from slave holders, is righteous money. When you work to righteous day's pay, you work right, you're supposed to do. When you all might start your first job at McDonald's or Burger King, they should give you a decent living wage. Remember that. Or Red Lobster.
Well, because the people often working on the ground, I mean, have you ever heard adults say, like, work really hard and you'll do well and make a lot of money and stuff? I mean, yeah, you know, being passionate and committing to what you do, but a lot of people who have a lot of money don't work that hard. And they actually take advantage of workers, people who they deem to be lesser than. So like, you know, my old bosses, I was there doing all this work for them, and everything Christine is saying, like, that's built on purpose, you know, like these people purposefully make people's work valued less than theirs, so they can become rich.
Right, so now in the 1930s, segregationist, bigoted, racist lawmakers, because we see who make laws in this country. If we don't push to have a seat at the table, you know, we talk about voters' right, why it's right to vote as well, because we left out of laws and how important these laws are. Here's what they did. They vindictively, systematically excluded farm workers, the people who feed us, the people who pick, we eat Burger King, right? There's a group of workers that's called Immokalee workers out in Florida who are still fighting to get what is theirs. They pick tomatoes, potatoes in Florida for the franchise. We eat at Wendy's, right? Okay, listen to the backstory. Those people are exploited left, right, and center, and they are our sister group too, right? But they work for way less than the minimum wage, okay? But the racist lawmakers decide who should make and who should have money and who shouldn't have money, and we always know who is the person, right, who's being kept out. The farm workers and the folks who work in the homes, who were the slaves at that point in time. And get this, and they were excluded from the National Labor Relations Act, which gives protection to other tiers of workers except farm workers and domestic workers. Two important groups of workers, okay? The faces back then were black folks, and today the demography has changed. It has happened to be immigrant women of color and farm workers who are primarily Latino, who are still fighting to get theirs, inclusion in most labor laws, right? Especially these two crucial groups of workers, domestic workers and farm workers. We talk about women's work. Women's work is, you know, your mommy get up in the morning, she cleans the house. Here's what, by some standard, she should do the work. She take care of every one of you that comes to school, but she's really not paid. Some of our mothers are stay-at-home mothers. They don't work. But who pays them? So women's work, which is done in the home, is seen as women's work. It has been called unskilled, right? Keep those words in mind. And answer me back when it's time to answer me. Ask plenty questions because I'm giving you food. You know, fodder for food for information, right? Women's work has been deemed invisible. Yet women's work is real work, which, by the way, make all other work possible. So when your mommy come here in the morning, the beds are made. She allows you to go to school and learn and come back and be something, whatever you want to be. Come in hand. Yeah, come and get it, Right? And all that you could be, right? It's work, it's really work. Because here's what, when you go home, there is dinner on the table, your clothes is washed, the house is kept clean, it's work, and it's deemed unskilled. But it takes a certain type of je ne sais quoi. This is Chrissy's word. Je ne sais quoi is a kind of verb to clean the house and put it together so we could exist in a nice space. So it's women's work. And the law has excluded domestic workers from real protection as workers. Domestic workers are excluded from the definition of employee, even though there are 200,000 of us in the New York doing the work to support our families. So here's what. We come here and we work to support, here's what. We're supporting our families in the States. We're supporting our families in Haiti, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, Antigua, Nepal, Southeast Asia, the Philippines. And then we're supporting the families we work for. And then we're sending home barrels of clothing to the children we have left behind and our families member were left behind to exist. That's 3 families. So you can imagine getting less than the minimum wage. Women are working beyond 40 hours a week. That's a lot of work. 44, thank you, Paula. 44 hours, that's a lot of work. The rich man don't work 44 hours. He stands on the corner and he makes a call to China and he reaps about $1 million in 1 hour. While the nut vendor who's selling nuts to him, next to him, has to stand up there from 6 in the morning to midnight to make just a sliver of what he make and doesn't even make it. The guy who's you see selling nuts at the corner, right here on Nostrand Avenue, you walk up and down Nostrand Avenue and you see him with his little nut vendor. Yet the man in the jacket and tie comes out and makes a call to Japan, China, wherever these conglomerates are, and make $1 million. And we work for those people. Hello.
And like Christine was saying, this is all by design. You know, do you guys know what an empire is? So the US is very much an empire that goes into other countries and destabilizes them and then makes it necessary for people in other countries, because of what the US does in them, to have to leave their homes and work here, right? For the opportunity to work in the US. But without the US doing all the nonsense that it's done, the racist and capitalist stuff that it's done everywhere in the world, there would be no need for people to leave their homes and to come here. And then once people come here, they're taken advantage of. Like Christine was saying with the people who work for diplomats, sometimes your employers hold your papers. Like they hide your passport from you, literally like holding you hostage. So you can't go back home and you have to work until they say you don't anymore. I guess, are there any questions from you all before we keep going?
Isn't that a form of indentured slavery?
Yeah. Yeah.
The system just the same system, but wording changed, action changed,
Yeah,
but it's the same system.
same system. But you see, the important part of that system is just the meander of this topic here right now. You see, when the pandemic hit, and what happened to Trayvon, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, while the system remains the same, we say different, same toilet, just different days or different dump, something like that. Here's what. To get the shift in it or the changes, community came together. Was no politicians did that. Communities came together and agitated. You understand what I say when I say agitate? You all understand? What? You all understand what I say agitate? Communities coming together.
Means buck the system.
Huh?
Means go against the system.
Yeah. Well, standing together. That's what I'm saying to the youth here. You know, it's not me without you, but it's standing together, agitating, so that, hear what? They could have charged those guys, right? The policemen who kneel on George Floyd's neck. They didn't go free. Even though the penalty was kind of slim, they still had to be held accountable. So when we stand together as a community, in spite of whatever it is going on, we're going to get action. And I'm going to tell you how we got action.
Yeah. How are we, what are
Yeah.
some examples of how we can come together?
Right. So because women were hurting in the workplace, like I said before, I reiterate, women were working really long hours, subjected to abuse. We, Domestic Workers United organization, was there for those women. And they came to us. And we started to organize from 2003 to 2010 and organize for Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. Going to Albany from 2003, right, to 2010, agitating for Bill of Rights collectively with other migrant groups in this country. Now, a lot of folks thought this was impossible because who are these immigrant women to come in the United States to go up to Albany lawmakers to change laws? My father used to say to me, you're playing with fire, you know, you go in a man's country to help change his law. But we did it. And collectively, we got a Domestic Workers Bill of Rights passed in New York State, the first of its kind. And that, let me just say this to you all, that is historical in nature. Yes, and it requires, because that somebody asked, as Vanessa asked how we did it, we went to lobby Albany from 2003 to 2010, going up to Albany night and day, performing in the streets, spending nights by City Hall, you know, drawing attention to women who work in their homes and then standing up for what is right. And so we got a Domestic Workers Bill of Rights passed. Would you know that when we got that Bill of Rights passed, other states went for their own Bill of Rights? So I think at this juncture, we have about 12 states who have gotten their Bill of Rights passed, and that is commendable. And just know that it started in New York. It started with us fighting diplomats, right? Who decided that they wanted to send their workers back to Africa, and we say no, they're not gonna go here. You're gonna stay here, and you're gonna give them the reparation money. And you know how we did that? We went to actually shame those people. We went in front of their workspaces. We went in front of their homes with placards saying, "Up with the people, yay, yay, and down with slavery, boom, boom. Up with the people, and down with slavery, boom, boom." Sending a clarion bell, sounding a bell, but going in front of these people so fearlessly so. So I have a mantra that I say, and I want to share it with you all. When you fight, you win. I'm not talking about physical fight with the people out there, but standing up for what you believe in. That's right. Yeah, when you fight, you win, and you stay the course. So we got the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights passed in 2010, right? That give rights to workers. Also, if workers feel they've been stiffed their wages, they could see us. We have pro bono lawyers who would take the case. they do it for free. They do it just for us to win. Right? So we have recourse. When folks say to you, who do you turn to or who do you go to? We have a place that we go to. We have legal representation. We have lawyers who would help the workers get their money. And I'm not talking pittance. I'm not talking little money, big money. And here's what, these employers feel that us, the workers, don't have rights. Whatever our situations are, whether documented or undocumented, we all have a right to live. We all have a right to live. The songwriters say, the civil rights songwriters say, we all have a right to live. If a man goes bare feet and you have to give him a plate of food, give it to him. Don't look down on him. He's somebody. I don't care where he comes from. Hardship takes all of us, but he's a man. She's a woman. Give her food, clothe her, if you could. It's called righteous indignation. Stand up for what's right. So we got a Bill of Rights passed, and you know, we have friends who organize with us as well. You know, the Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, the clergies of churches here, Brooklyn for Peace, Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, different sectors of organization. While we went to Albany, I must say this, and when I talk about you all having your friends back, we didn't go alone. We went with the folks I just called here. Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, Brooklyn for Peace, other organizations, Local 1199 unions. And by the way, we're not a union, but we're workers' rights-led movement, fighting for what's right. And I'm tired talking, so ask me questions. Yeah, ask any question, shoot from the hips. I'm tired. I did all the talking and I'm thirsty. So I want you to ask me questions now. Yes, sis?
I'm wondering, so if someone does have an inclination that there is a wrongdoing happening and want to fight the good fight, how do we find the resources that you're talking about? Like, how do we seek out joining, you guys going up for 7 years, with the signs, and like, how do we get to that point?
Community, sis. It sounds cliche, but community. Here's what. Everything begins with a single step, right? Find a community. I'm saying this to you, youths too. Belong to a community. You know, some people, we get tired because, brothers, the system overwhelms us. But when you fight, you win. Because we get sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're really burnt out. I take it personal. Like I was saying to Vanessa today, sometimes I take the brunt of movement building because who comes for us? We're tired. Here's what. Saturday comes in and I get it. We want to do our hair and we want to do our nails. I get that. Don't you want to do your hair and nails? Yeah. Kind of go natural like me.
But turn it into a fundraiser.
Yeah. Go natural like me and fight the fight. Nappy and nappy. No, but I'm saying this to say, yeah. Yeah, you get it right? Yeah. Because here's what. You go into the hairdresser, you're giving them your money. Some of them, depending on where we go, they're not nice to us. We paying our money, and they're not nice. Sometimes I have to watch them and take back my money and say, you get my money. So, finding community.
Use your time wisely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no. Do your niceness too. Yeah. But advocate while you're in that space. Because here's what's happening. I like church. As Christian, I like church. But you know what? The working poor in the church. The working poor are in the church because they believe Jesus Christ will save. The working poor is in the church. And here's what. They're going to give the last $20. I see it with sisters who came into the space. They said, thank God I could tithe this month. You know what? I don't have a job, but I could tithe. You know what the social justice activist pastor asked me? He said, what is the church doing to help that woman? But community, let me just say this. Community is important. Find a community. Ask us where we belong. Come and belong. Students belong to a community. Find a community in your school, and I'm pretty sure that's why we come here, right? That's why we come to schools. I used to do this speaking across schools in New York City. Find a community that you like. and give off your service. Service is important. We kind of go into, here's what we do too. We go into these things to see what they could do for us. I never belonged to DW to see what they could do for us. I went in because it was my story. It was my story that I was able to write about. It was my story, the exploit, the unfair practices. I'm caring for your baby and you're talking them to me? No, how dare you? I'm somebody, you know, and you hear these stories. So it must motivate you to move, to do something. It affects me that way, that I belong to the movement for the past 22 years, 21 years, organizing and doing this work. Because it's, if anybody tell me to come to a dance party, I like to dance, I'm a dancer too, I'll dance hard. But I ain't coming to your party unless you come over here. That's my trade-off too. Because I'm sold out on organizing. I'm really sold out. Because you know why? We are affected. But we jamming still. The songwriter say, we jamming still. The party will burn down. We and we jamming still.
Party too.
We party hard. But yeah, we party hard. But we do it in the garden while we giving food. But I'm saying this to say,
I know you don't believe it, but we have fun events.
We have fun events, but community. You know, community. You know, community. What my little friend want? Tell me we're jamming still?
Come to our next block party and see. And we need you guys to help us make it more fun.
Yeah, we need a youth, and we need a young blood, we really do.
Yeah.
But it's important because, like I said, when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor happened, it took the students coming out to organize from universities, not the politicians, and standing in front of cars and willing to risk it, like they did in Martin Luther King's time. Everybody joined with that walk. And by the way, you're talking about domestic workers' rights. It started with the sanitation workers in Mississippi, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia. Back in the days. All that organizing didn't start from the top. It started from the ground. Yeah. Before you, brother was asking a question. What are your thoughts, sis?
I think as a people, we don't understand our value. And our value is our worth. So that means economically, we could turn this system upside down, but we just don't know how to.
Yeah.
You know, like if most of these women and stop buying hair from the Chinese or stop doing this, you see how they would change for us because we are the largest spending consumers in the United States.
Yeah.
They depend on us to survive. So we just have to learn how to understand, put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
I just want to add into overall, we just have to learn how to sacrifice. A lot of people sacrificed before. A lot of generations before us sacrificed just us to be in here.
Yes.
Just to read.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just curious, what industry are you guys planning to be in? What do you guys want to be when you grow up? And it's okay if you don't know.
Yeah.
Does anyone have like an idea of what field they might be in?
I'm in the nursing field.
Okay.
Nurse.
Nurse. Okay. Some of the things that she was mentioning, you're gonna face that in that field too. That's the thing. What she's saying isn't just one industry. It's universal.
Yep.
So whatever industry you're in, you're gonna face some level of injustice. Sometimes things aren't gonna be right, and you're gonna have to communicate with each other. As she said, it might be a union, and depending on the type of job you have, there's human resources.
Yep.
So let's say she's a nurse and you feel like somebody, your boss is bullying you, you can go to human resources and they'll handle that for you. But then sometimes people are in cahoots and they just want to see you down, or they don't want to see you.
Yeah.
They want to see you at a certain level, but they don't want to see you at the top.
Yeah.
So they'll try to find ways to suppress you and keep you down. So that's something that you guys have to really take and understand.
And thanks for that, my brother. It's not just us. It's not just this nuclear of us organizing. And yes, some women are in the shadows. They're afraid, whatever their situation is. Some people aren't as vocal as I and Vanessa. So we have to help those sisters step up and really help them because they're really in the shadows. They're women who come to me May never come to a meeting, but they need help. We're there. We're at anchor. So finding, you know, in all sectors of work, as my brother just said, there'll always be exploit. But make sure to have, when you fight, you know, people say, Christine, when you fight, you win. I don't mean going out there and slugging each other, but standing up against injustice. Be the only one in the room that says, no in a sea a yes. Make a difference. Because all that's good is not good, and all that's bad is not bad. And all that's bad is good, and all that's good is bad. Make a difference.
Yeah, one of Domestic Workers United's motto is "We are power," which I always think is really important to remember, because the top 1%, I mean, even this idea of a hierarchy, right, is total BS. No human being is worth more than another human being. Just because someone makes a lot of money, or the color of their skin, or whatever, where they're from, like, none of that makes you better than anybody else. We're all on this earth together, and we have power. Like, the people at the top, it's very few people at the top of this system. And if we, people who work, take our labor away, that's really power that we have. Do you guys know what a strike is? Yeah, when people stop working, it gets stuff done, because like Christine was saying, those bosses, they're just on their phone, they're having their little martini lunch, you know, they don't know how to run their businesses. I've worked as an assistant too. These people aren't doing anything, to be quite honest. It's the people who are paid the least who are often doing the most. And if you say, enough's enough, I'm not gonna work for you, you know, then they're desperate, and you have your, like, labor is the power.
Yeah, my question is, the working woman, the Bill of Rights, the employers, do they recognize it? And if not, or if they do, how do you empower the workers to know about the Bill of Rights, so that they know their rights when they negotiate a job?
So, there is no shortage of information on Domestic Workers United. When we started to organize in 2003, the movement was born in 1999. Some say 2000, but in 2003 was when we vociferously went to Albany every year, chiseling, mandating the bill. So we were over every tabloid. You Google Domestic Workers United, there is no shortage of information. And so employers know. However, good question, some employers don't know. What we as workers do, we go to educate the employers. Because we're not a union. We're still excluded from most labor laws. However, we got the Bill of Rights passed. And we have this little book that states, it's a little red book. Yeah, it's a little red book. It might need some updating, but we have everything to know that we give to workers in here. How to negotiate. And also we have meetings every third Saturday in the month, right? We haven't had a meeting because we organize around theater, we organize around writing with the Pen American World Voices to be able to tell our stories, right? And having our organization meeting, whether we meet in the garden, we get food from Maple Street Community Garden all the summer, right? Talking to each other and empowering our employers. But here's what we have, as I said before, we have these conversations where we talk about knowing your rights. It's not for the employer, it's for us to know our rights and how to push back. There's always another job somewhere. Somebody will come and tell somebody there's a job there. But it's for us to know our rights. So we partner with the Department of Consumer Affairs, and the mayor's office, various local entity who partner with EWU to have these topical conversations every once a month. So every worker will know how to push back. If they're not sure, they call myself, Vanessa, Eileen, or Diane, right? The key workers of the movement. They would call us to find out, and we will navigate them. As a matter of fact, last month, one of the women from the movement won some back wages in the heights of COVID. She was let down from her job, and the employer thought that she didn't have a back-in. And the lawyers worked the case, and she was able to win her reparation money.
So before it goes to a legal matter, becomes legal, is there a way that there's a communication between the employer and employee to resolve the issue, or it just goes?
No. Good question too. They could talk it out, right? It's the idea is that we empower each other on how to. And Vanessa, you could give a synopsis of that, right? When it came to the movement, the time that you was having, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is to help each other. We talk about community. Help each other. How to talk, what to say, how to say it, right? We're doing things in integrity. And before it reach, and if we feel that the employer is playing hardball, you can write your story, submit it to one of us, and we get it to the lawyers. Right? But community, back to your question. You can't just come in the movement. You can't just come in the movement. You can't just come in the movement and you can't just come in the movement and expect perks, right? Belong. This is why people get help. Belong. Anything that you want, you know, we come in to see, well, I'm going to this movement to see what they could do for me. Belong to that movement. And you'll be surprised what that movement could do for you. So yeah, we strive to have these monthly meetings to talk through the right ways, how we go about things. And if that doesn't work out, we get the lawyers. Vanessa, you want to speak to your story?
Yeah, I mean, what's coming to mind is like this abolitionist Miriam Kaba, who I really admire, always says everything worth doing is done together, you know, and it's true. We can't do anything alone because during the pandemic, my rich employers, I had been with them for 5 years, taking care of their kids, cooking the whole family dinner every night. They say, you're part of the family, you're like a daughter to us, you know, which I don't know. I don't think ever really is true. But they'll use that to manipulate you, you know. And you love the children you're taking care of. So it's complicated work, right? Yeah. But yeah, the pandemic hit and they ran away to their beach house. And I was left not knowing how I was gonna pay my rent, how I was gonna, you know, move forward. And I connected with Domestic Workers United, and they sat with me on the phone and gave me talking points about like how to write up a contract, you know, get everything in writing and have my employer sign that they still owe me this amount of money. They can't just stop paying me because they decided to leave the city. And when they come back, what will that look like? And it was hard. Look, it's hard to stand up for your rights when people control how much money you're making and if you can afford to live your life. But together with the help of people who have experienced this before, you know, learning from our elders, learning from people who have gone through this and stuff even worse, you know, they have a lot of valuable stuff to teach us, and you can stand up for yourself. Now, it doesn't always work, unfortunately, right? Like sometimes you will just get fired, but then, and eventually I did get fired for speaking up a little too much for their liking. But then DWU had my back, you know, people would, if they went away for vacation for a week, would be like, Vanessa, can you take over, you know, until I found another job. The members of Domestic Workers United showed up for me, and we had this food drive that we organized. So I was able to have fresh vegetables every week too, because we can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone, and everyone who says they do it alone is lying, honestly, because everybody depends on people. We're on this earth to be in community and to be with each other. Even if you become rich and famous, it's not worth it if you're all by yourself up there, you know, and you depend on other people always.
And let me answer your other question too. Here's what I do when I go on jobs, knowing that I don't like the situation, or I listen to them and what they're willing to pay. I educate them on the Bill of Rights. Knowing that I'm not going to get a job, but here's what, if the next person comes, they'll either have to do right. I'm equipping them with the information already that I know that the next person come in, they'll rethink it and decide to do right by that person. So there's many ways. And so while I'm here, let me acknowledge the folks in DW. You want to ask a question, honey?
We have our stuff is ongoing, our stuff is ongoing.
Okay. No, we're gonna close up just now. Yeah, 1:15. We're gonna close up ready right now. But I want to acknowledge before you all go. I want to acknowledge the folks of DW when you ask me how we do it. So I am Christine, the Secretary, Cultural Outreach Coordinator with Domestic Workers United. Vanessa.
Vanessa Bretas. I started by helping out with mutual aid, and yeah, I work with the artistic element too.
Yeah. Because we organize through partnering with the public theater to do Shakespeare in the Park. That's one way we organize. Folks come on board to be a part of the theater workshop, which we did for the entire summer in Central Park. So we act too. We're also actors. We're writers. We write with the Pen American World Voices. And then we have Diana. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Diane. I've been with DW for more than 10 years. And the group actually helped me to speak up on my job. I used to be shy and just accept anything that was offered to me. But when I realized that I was under pressuring myself to do certain things to suit my employers, DW was the person, was the group that really, educated me and how to speak up and write a resume.
Thank you, Diana. And to answer your question, the resources and stuff, that wonderful lady there with the mask on, Eileen, write grants for us because it takes money to do the work we do it. Pro bono, free. This woman sitting there writes because it takes money to run the movement as well. People speak, we have to give them an honorarium. She, Eileen, writes the grant, pro bono. So it takes all of that, right? And it takes you finding a cause, whether in your school, and I know in this school, it's a Medgar school, and I believe you all have a lot of organizations attached to this school that's doing good work in the community. Find one and attach yourself to it. Because you know what? Somebody might need help today, and it might be you, it might be me, it might be he, it might be she. But we'll have some place to go to. Okay? Any questions?
And I also find a lot of college kids doing nannying or infant care to get some fast money per week, because most of these jobs pay per week. And sometimes youngsters have objectives or goals in view, and they just need extra cash or some fast cash to do it. So I find that a lot of youngsters from college and high school are doing this type of job as well. So it's good to know your rights before you go into it. So if you need to know anything, contact Domestic Workers United before you actually pursue that.
Yeah, and make sure you're reading any contract before you're signing it. You can always come to us too if you don't understand what your employer is making you sign, and that, you have power. Just because you're young doesn't mean people can take advantage of you. Like, you absolutely deserve to be paid a living wage. You deserve to be valued in everything you do. Like, it's really, just because people say and put pressure that you don't, it's not true. And you have the power. You can come together with your fellow workers and say, no, I mean, it's a risk, and you have to have resources to support each other. But with that community power, you can really do a lot. You can really stand up against people trying to take advantage of you.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Yes. Could I tell you something? As I see young folks here, I remember going to Red Lobster in Long Island some years ago, and there was this young student, she was bussing the table, and one of the interesting things, we left a tip, and she was working, at that time, I think as students, they work for little money in those establishments, kind of below the minimum wage. I don't know what it is now, but she said to me, when you give me this tip, let's say it's $5 or $10, she doesn't just get that $5. that $5 is divvied up between the guy who wipes the table, and if I order a drink, the guy who brings the drink, and then her. How much money is that if I give her $5? And what if they pool the tips? I mean, and you all will go out into the workforce, right? So, thank you. Any questions? Last questions? None?
Are you guys passionate about any organizations? Are you part of anything? Yeah?
Why are the organizations never mentioned?
Sorry?
Why are the organizations never mentioned? Like some people's memories are lives to be blank in a community where we have organizations, we have help, but we don't know that it's there.
Yeah.
More publicity.
Yes.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And it's true, because sometimes we meet, I go out into the speaking sphere and people say, where were you? Where were you? And by the way, we're major tabloids. You could Google Domestic Workers United, right? We're all across the board, but that's an important question, right? This is why Ms. Katz brought me here. This is a beginning. So the more teachings you all have around other organizations, like I think this is a 3-day symposium. If you all come back tomorrow, you'll hear other community, what other folks are doing in the community that is artistic and cultural. So that's a really good question. Because we're still, I mean, I show up some places and people say, I have never heard about you. Or they have heard, or another organization, but we're all doing the work, right? And the churches sometimes is the conduits, you know, we're in the churches. But what we have to do is speak this thing every day to each other. So now you know about us, tell others. You know, there's a wonderful group. Because some of our mother's story, some of our grandmother's story as immigrants, we don't talk it, we don't tell these stories. We really don't. Because there's a pride attached to it too. You know, I leave there to come and do this, I used to do that, I used to do that. No, all work is sacred. When God created the universe, He said 3 times, it is good. All work is good, but it must be recompensed in a dignified manner,
In the right way.
in a right way. That makes us want to be.
Yeah, and if you want to start your own group, reach out to us and we will support you in any way we can. You know, and that's important too.
Can I say something? It's very important that you guys are here now, that you said you don't hear about these organizations. But with you guys being here today, you'll get that information where you can go out and share this with community, share it with family members, share with friends. You don't know who may need to hear this or who may need the help. Because it might be your parents, grandparents, friends' parents. You know, you might look at somebody and you don't know what they're going through, how they may need help. Some people don't say anything. But sometimes just sharing information, having a conversation, someone may listen and hear that, and then you might make a difference.
Yeah, and we need you and we value you guys a lot. Like, because the youth is so important too.
When I first heard about Domestic Workers United, I met Miss Christine in 2006 on the Upper West Side in a playground. And she came to me, gave me a paper, a white paper, tell me what are my rights as a domestic worker in the city. And I remember taking that paper and tucking it in the stroller that I was pushing, because I was like, suppose the people I work with see this and then they find me. But because of her, she's always been there. And I stuck with her, and now I know my rights. So I can educate myself and educate other women. And what you're going through, no, you're not supposed to be going through this. You need to speak up. And this is not just for domestic workers, this is also for you youth, for everything in your life. Okay?
Diana, before we go.
Before you go, and this is, you know, the rights, it doesn't matter your status.
Yeah.
So some people live unfair because, yeah, some people live unfair because of their status, whether you're young or old. We should let everyone know that it doesn't matter your status. You have rights. This is New York City. Most of all, New York City, we all have rights. So it doesn't matter where you're from and who you are, what language you speak. Because these are the barriers. Your vulnerability because of you're undocumented, or because of your language, you know, you're shy because of your accent, people won't understand you, people will take advantage of you. And this is why we have this workers-led movement, the Domestic Workers United. Okay? So tell your friends, tell your mom, your dads, your grandparents, everyone that we are here.
And get involved.
WUNewYork@gmail.com if you ever want to reach us.
And just get involved. Get involved in something that motivates you and move you too. All right? Any questions? Any thoughts? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Have a good day and be safe. I know. Hi, Sugar Brown. So nice to come. Hi, sweetie.
You're gonna go get it. Like, what's gonna leave our stuff? Because we gotta come back here.
Rosie, I know you saw plates.
Good afternoon. I'm here on this conference. My name is Anthony. Everybody know me as Big Tony Joseph. I'm the president of United States Steel Band Association and president/leader of Metro Steel Orchestra. And on my left is Earl Brooks Jr.
Hi, well, I'm Earl Brooks Jr., son of a living legend, Earl Brooks Sr., one of the earlier people to tour with the instrument, educate with the instrument. He recorded with people like Andre Tanker, toured with Kitchener up until his passing. And me being the junior, growing up with a father in the business, I always wanted to do more. So at 20 years old, I moved here, went to Berklee College of Music in Boston for music. And now I have my own school, Brooks Arts Academy, that's working on its full online presence rather than physical. And I'm also a touring musician, educator, play drums, just to name a few things, yeah.
It's so funny how life goes in a big circle as I'm looking out and I'm seeing since I was 13, 14, I got into this business by being forced in. My father was a leader of a band. I never took up the Caribbean culture. I was a basketball player. I played high school, went to Baylor, graduated, played 4 years at Baylor, came back with my degree, and one day he was like, yo, you need to get to your culture. And I always walked by this band on Fulton Street named Metro. But the band had a stigma, you know. Knowing me, I still went and never looked back. It's been a family to me as far as the steel band community. You don't realize how large it is, and it produced doctors, lawyers, judges, a lot of great people. I think is very underrated. Me being the president of the Steel Band Association, we have 15 bands, and maybe one or two of you might have played in a band. Most band goes for the summer because of logistics, finance. They cannot have places to operate in the winter. So the summer, I think we oversee at least 5,000 youth from 8 till 21. I would say in that youth, most of them play in different bands. We have Cassim, Metro, Pan Evolution. I hope I don't forget anybody. Harmony, Desperate USA, Peso, Pan Evolution, and then you have like all the bands that do have some youths, but not majorities, like Dorados. So you have youths in all aspects. Like I said, it's been good. The history of the pan in New York. Matter of fact, the steel pan helped started the carnival in America, because I remember from a little kid, DJs could never come up the road on Eastern Parkway or on the road. Is the steel band used to bring up the mass. And then as an evolution, I guess the DJ became more, popular. The steel band kind of fade out, but there's a lot of bands in schools. There's even studies to say when you learn steel band, you get better in classes, school, memory, discipline. So it does influence you, and it does help you, because a lot of great musicians can't memorize 10 minutes of music, different phrasing, different gyro. Most great musicians reads off the sheet. Us, we've been gifted that we can memorize 30 tunes from the mind. So that teach your mind how to memorize, and it teach you discipline. Like Mr. Brooks, he's matter of fact, he came to me when he was 8. Wow.
I mean, to add to what you're saying, basically, and at the early ages of playing steel pan, you learn things like team building, communicative skills, because you got to work together to come to this one goal of achieving the music, whether it be for the competition or for performance-wise. So it's a great thing to help young kids get out of their comfort zone communicatively, because a lot of kids, they don't express themselves as well. And a next thing that personally as an educator I ran into only recently, there's a lot of people that are using the word autistic towards kids nowadays. It wasn't something I grew up with, home in the islands, nor early years being here, but since being in the classroom for the 4 or 5 years, okay, this kid's have autism, this kid. And to me, that's just an easy way of dismissing someone from learning how to communicate with that person. And that actually diffuses when you get into that steel band realm. Because once you reach in that room, you see the same person that gives all the problem in the class. As soon as he tries, all of a sudden he's excited because he got it. Then the next person next to him is influenced by that. So it kind of helps with, it's infectious, I know when you hear the instrument, it gives that reaction every way too. So just to add to what you were saying with that.
Yeah, and even you don't realize how it helps the community. Wow. Well, we know we have problems in our community with the gangs and the different situation. My band have 40 kids, and believe me, different gangs. But once they cross that line, I teach them, listen, you fighting for something that don't belong to you. That's territory, it's not yours. You just here for a moment. So when you walk in my yard, you leave that outside. Because I know I had kids that couldn't cross Utica Avenue. I had kids couldn't come to Flatbush. Matter of fact, when I was on Parkside, it was the headquarters, MS2 for the Crips. Half my bands was Bloods, half was Crips. They know once they get on that block, it's not happening. So we as a society don't understand the effect that these bands have on our kids and our community. You know, plus 99.9% of the bands are non-funded.
Out of pocket.
Out of pocket. Last year, I took my kids, a lot of kids who never left Brooklyn, to Miami to compete. A lot of things they never seen, you know, the different culture, you know, or the houses, you know, just little things that we take for granted, they never seen. So they went, they compete. We came first one year, second the next year. But I look at it as a win because they learned, you know. Kids are very visual, you know, what they, oh wow, this is how they do it, you know, this is how they live. They see how people like them, that they could live different. They don't have to be, you know, I took them around what they would call projects in Miami, and they was like, no, this is not a project. I said, yeah, different, like different areas and different geographics, they're different. So they believe all the projects was 6 feet, 40 buildings, 300 people living in the building. And then when I took them to a certain part of Miami and I said, like, yo, this is a projects, it was like, projects? This is a home, you know, so they don't have, so again, I believe that as a community, we sell the Steel Bend community short because I don't think this city realized the work that we do as leaders, teachers. I mean, I could say in the last, 10 years, kids that I know that play under me, we have like about 8 professors teaching in major college. We have teachers. Just the other day I was driving and a cop car pulled me over and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And then the person knocked on the door, knocked on the window and said, put your window down. And they looked at me as like, you remember me? And I'm like, what did I do? Who know me, know. And they said, oh, and they called the captain and it's like, oh. And I'm sitting there nervous and she said, oh, I just want to thank you. Like, you say you don't remember me? Like, the voice off of me, she said, Dawn. I said, Dawn, wow. She said, anyway, I never forgot that one year you took 10 of us, that was 17 going 18, and gave us $30 to go take city tests. So that's what we do for our community.
I mean, you kind of hit like 3 points I wanted to stop you, but I didn't, you know. You kind of piggybacked on the history of the instrument. You talked about how on Parkside you had, you know, the 2 different gangs to deal with, red and blue, however they want to be. But this is basically a big part of the history of the instrument, you know, the stigma per se. In my father's generation, your times, you couldn't really walk around with that instrument just like that. From cops taking it from you to
beat up.
Come with the stories. I wasn't there, but the kind of stories I've heard, all right? But to come from that to now, I can walk with it and somebody look at it, oh my gosh, you play that thingy. Whether you call it thingy, steel drum, pan, I'm just glad that they can acknowledge the instrument as an instrument, firstly, and then secondly, be inquisitive about our culture. So we have to take our time to make sure and explain the history of the instrument, where it came from to where it is now. When I teach my class, I make sure and I show them this is how it is created. When they watch that for 5 minutes on them grooving the notes, then actually putting the fire, cutting the barrel, I'm like, you see how you could get cut doing that? And then they show the person tuning, that's the main part. When the person tuning, I'm like, y'all see y'all doing that to these instruments right now? You know, that's how they tune the instrument. It's not meant to be detuned. So keep the instrument. In order to keep the instrument, we gotta play it a certain way. We gotta approach it like an instrument, show it with respect. Now it have cases, you know, so that's a big part that I'm grateful to be able to, you know, experience, you know, that I don't have to watch my back when I'm walking with this instrument, you know.
And then we're gonna take it back. And I'm going back to my father days. It was a taboo. My father had to sneak around just to talk to my mother, because back in those days, once you play any kind of steel band, you was considered a bad John.
Bad John.
Hooligan.
But you might have to explain that, what a bad John is.
Okay.
So just
well,
explain that.
A bad John is a person that means no good. Is a misfit in society. And it's so crazy. Matter of fact, all my uncles was in the same band. Father and my four of my uncles. So the Joseph was outcast, you know, dumb. And they told me the stories that what they had to go through, you know, and I'm like, by the same people now who making money off of it, you know, so it you know, life changed, but time changed, but some things stay the same, you know. Up to today, right, in this society, if you go up to the older people and, you know, and you talk about pine, they still have that stigma. They look at you like, what? You know, so it, you know, God always put the greatest, I say, creation to the lowest denominator of people. You know, that's a gift. You know, it's just what we do with it.
Nothing I can say after that. Spoke about God. God first and last. Let's go. I don't have anything at the top of my mind. Anybody have any questions per se?
Well, did you talk about women in pan? I came into the conversation.
Okay.
I'm a panist myself.
Okay.
So we talk about, you know, you were talking about badger. I think it's akin to gangs too. You know, I wasn't born that era.
Right.
So I'm, you know, to shift it. I feel like pan music was akin to even jazz in greasy corners of New Orleans or down south. When good girls, people's good children couldn't be found going to those joints. But we don't talk about, like you just talk about taking a pan in the case. We don't talk, I show up on the scene and people say, women play steel drums? Oh yes, we do.
Play a big part.
We play a big part, but that is still so, again, the stigma that's attached to it as well.
Right.
You know, the good girls don't play the oil drums, they don't. Hello. So we, you know, and that's why I show up a lot with the pan.
Okay.
More so now than ever. I didn't get a pan to put it in my living room as a decoration. No.
Respect for that.
Yeah. A lot of us do that, but culturally do that. Because every entity brings the piano, they bring the violin. We don't. It's costly too. So import it too, it's costly. The infrastructure behind it is kind of a little shady. I remember, we talk about the work. I remember standing on the Upper West Side many years ago, looking through a window on the Upper West Side. And there was a lily white band from Seattle playing at a street fair on the Upper West Side. And I went, well, I have to go down and join and play I'm a person who walks with tons of percussions as well, and I had to carry one of my percussion. But I mean, a fact like Seattle, a little white band on the street, and I went back. I mean, that was in 1990 something, early 90s. Yeah, I'm mesmerized about that. So there's many layers, you know. I feel like we talk about the pan, there's many layers, the women, the culture of the pan, who gets the plate, the funding for the pan. Are we, by the way, are we playing in the Philharmonics? Are we advocating for that? Hello.
But you have to understand, I think the people before me, like our generation and the younger generation, that brought pan to America, never look at it as a business. We still don't treat it as a business. 3-4 years ago, we went to Virginia Jazz Fest. I think we was the only black band in there. There was over 40 bands in Virginia alone. They are funded by the city, state, and they, Board of Ed, whatever. They have professors teaching them. But what they do is they goes to Trinidad, learn the culture, goes back, and turn it now to where it benefits them.
Let me cut you slightly. They wouldn't even learn the culture. They would walk with a video camera, record you for 2 weeks, come back with their proposal. Hey, I met this one and that one, and that's da-da-da-da-da. All we need is da-da-da-da. And at the end of the day, you cannot blame them, because that's how they operate. That's how business is. You do your homework, you get your proposal together, your black and white, and you put it forward. It's up to us to educate each other and have, like I said, the outreach that we need to be able to get these grants and these fundings, and to actually have a steel band in New York that has a home. You understand? So all of it, as you said, all of it has big factors. You know, like you spoke about woman in pan. Back in the day when I was younger, I only knew of 1 or 2. Now I can name a handful that are touring, educating, and
professors.
Yeah, professors at schools. You understand? Like one, for instance, Joanne Felix, she played with the Philharmonic Orchestra the other day in Lincoln Center. You know, so she does a lot of different stuff with that. So there are people that are, I would say, and I'll end with this, there are people who are trendsetters, there are people who will follow the trend, and there's people who would just do the job at the end of the day. And they all needed to get the job done. You know, we all have a part to play. Life is a stage, right? What do you say? Brother Valentino, right?
Yeah. And like coming to the end, wow. I've been in this since, wow, I can't remember. As I'm looking out, Miss Lozama, her father, Carlos Lozama, he was, I could say, the father of the Western American Day Carnival. I'll never forget one day, something happened, and I need to talk to you. Get inside. And come back. You know what? We end up building a relationship, and wow. Up to today, I can remember certain things he said. You know, he was a visionary. And, you know, like he could look at me and see something. So I thank him for that. For those who don't know, I am one of the most problematic person in steel band. Very. Why? Because it's my passion. And my vision is, I've been in this almost 30 years and have nothing to show for it. I believe the next generation should be better off, you know, where they should be able to benefit and from our hard work and our for all this hard work, you know, they should be able to get medical, pension. Same thing that's given to every other culture and every other thing. So I hope before I leave this earth, I can see it.
So we have to advocate for it, all of us. We talk about community, cliche as it may sound. Advocate, agitate, agitate, advocate. Else we wouldn't get it. Hello. We'll still be in a backyard. Hello.
We don't have any more yards.
No, that's my point. I was just about to ask a question. Yeah. The last band I played with was I mean some years ago until I got my back. Was Despa's down in Classen. And they have moved quite a number of times. So what is the populace of people or the Caribbean entity or the basin is doing to procure the outfit is the question. And it's a shame.
The question is that, like I said, we somehow, I just say, we are posted. We, you know, quote, when a lot of the quote politicians running, they in the pan yard taking pictures with the kids, and you know, we are a community, and we just don't hold them accountable. Not that they wouldn't do, but if you don't ask, you wouldn't get. If you don't hold them, so they know what we do. How do we turn it around to not benefit us, but benefit them?
Should be
Because it
mutual.
was something, China would be waving the Trinidad flag and jumping up and waving.
Everywhere does it.
Everywhere does it.
So,
Japan?
No, I agree,
Everywhere
but it's
does
something to ponder. Just leave that. They'll be waving the Trinidad flag and we jump instead.
Sorry to cut you there. So this is a little slight rebuttal to what you just said. Now, when I first moved here in 2020 and I went to Boston with the College of Music, and I'm seeing, as you say, lily white band playing this way, lily white people educating in universities and such, and I'm here paying close to $100,000 a year to finish school.
And they get
right?
free scholarship.
But you see, just the fact that they're waving the Trinity flag and not a Jamaican flag is a big difference. I just spent 7 months in Dubai as the only person representing Trinidad from start to finish for the expo, Dubai Expo that they just had. And you know, I had to be preaching every day where pan was invented. When St. Vincent came, you know what they said? It was invented in St. Vincent. When Antigua came, you know what they said? It was invented in Antigua. You know who was the only person who had to battle for that every day? Well, please go to the Trinidad Pavilion, myself. And I don't need anything for that. I just the fact that they could acknowledge it's Trinidad first, and then we spread it as the voice of the Caribbean is a very big, crucial part.
Did we ever get Trinidad? Did they ever get that Japan pattern in?
That is a very difficult thing to do at this stage.
At this point, because right now, Panyard has more rights to pan in the United States than Trinidad and Tobago government or Pan Trinbago.
Interesting.
And that is mostly because of paperwork. Who presented it first.
Right.
That's how patents go. You know, and these
But
things.
Tony, there's a hold on it. So right now, Trinidad and
There's a
Tobago
battle going
government
on, yeah.
put a hold on it.
Right.
So it cannot go through.
Right, but even with the whole, financially, they are benefiting because a tuner from Trinidad might only get $1,500 for a tenor. They getting $4,000. See the difference?
Okay, so now this is the kind of topics I like as an educator. So now, who are we actually marketing for with the instrument?
Well, we not marketing the instrument.
Wait, understand where I'm coming from. Who are we marketing for? If I myself couldn't afford one last year, I had to pay my whole savings from summer to get one. Far less for them kids who actually could play it and have the talent to think. This is why when you Google steel drums, you don't see us.
Right.
So we have to find a way to re-evaluate how we sell this instrument, how we market it, how we price it. Because again, they are marketing the instrument price for they can afford it, we can't.
Uh-huh.
just want to add, I think not even with just steel band, I think with arts in general, I think there needs to be more, as y'all said, just more preservation. I feel like that's the word. There needs to be a lot of preservation and also knowledge, and we also have to expose, as you guys saying, the exploitation, because it's not even just in steel bands. It's in TikTok, it's in rap music, it's in everything. It's more so the knowledge, not knowing contracts, not understanding the word gratuity. You start something that's forever.
Yes, sir.
So publishing, it goes into multiple things. So I think it's preservation, and as you, I like that you're like. What I like about what you just said is that you're going to these different places. Because think if he didn't go there.
Right.
Where's representation?
And that's why again I use this tonality around the Chinese will be waving the Trini flag and jamming still. Thank you.
That's a quick question. Thank you for your remarks. And if you mentioned this earlier before I came in, excuse me, but are we going to have a real panorama competition coming up, or are we going to continue to have these lovely pan shows, but they're not the same as the pan competition that we've had? And we haven't had one since COVID. Is there a movement to get that competition back? Because that just seems so central to keeping this community's energy going. Am I right?
Right. I'm the president of the Steel Band Association.
Right. Yes, sir.
How can I put it? I think it's very valuable to our community because it brings our community together. But again, financially, it's a burden. Like for instance, I have to pay to practice with kids, feed the kids, pick them up, drop them off. $5,000 a month for an open lot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not blaming Riaka, I'm not blaming any identity, but it's hard for me to put $30,000 just in. This is our burden as a leader of a band. Rent $30,000. Tuna $5,000. Ranger, 10,000. Now, count the thousands. Welding, uniforms, trucking, transportation. Now we have to get insurance. So I'm spending from my house, because I have no money, over $60,000, and I'm going to compete for $20,000. That math doesn't add up. Now, the people that's giving it, you know, after a while you think they robbing you, they don't have to give. The people who's benefiting from it is not giving. So, as we see, I've been there since 1973. And I see what the city benefits from it. And I see what the city gives back to it. That's where the problem lies.
The city ought to be giving back a whole lot more.
Right. I can't hold Riaka responsible for what they can't give.
Right.
You know, at one time I did, until when you get older and you get wiser and you understand business. You understand? So, since the pandemic, the bands realized, stating that it's not even worth me putting that kind of money. What COVID did, it taught us that we don't have to. It was like a drugs. It was like a bad drugs. When June come, you mortgage your house. I know guys lost their house. I know guys' wives have 4 or 5 marriages. Just as pine season, he outside sleeping in the yard. That's because that's love. We love something And it's like a bad marriage. You know you went out, but you can't get out. That's how we talk about it. Somehow I hope the administrator or somebody see that. And maybe you're right, sister. The whole community got to put pressure on them because the Italian parade, they get billions, big sponsors. The Puerto Rican parade, big sponsors, big.
This generator has more money than
Yes.
Muslim festival.
Right.
Hello.
Right, and we bring in the most money, but we get the less because
Okay.
I mean, I deal every year with LS-Connxn, and the other day we had a meeting. Everybody said they got 50 sponsors. I said, but each sponsor get them $300.
Hello.
Okay.
So, you know, your eyes are playing tricks on you. You know, they would look at UC Health. Okay, all right, here go $300. Here go $400. So now we who struggling, y'all got help first. Y'all have this. Y'all have that. They have nothing. So we are battling each other for nothing. You know, I always tell my group, we love eating crumbs. Why aren't we gonna go after the pie? Because today, everybody, the whole community, stop going out there, it will change.
So my question would be, because there's a lot of key people in this room, if you look around, that's been involved in the community, wouldn't it be beneficial, since we're having these discussions, to work as a community and speak
It has to be a community.
as
It
a
has to.
community to be able to get that outreach, that funding funneled back in? I mean, I drove around today. I'm not in Brooklyn all the time. And I looked around at all these buildings going up.
Going up or already up?
Up! And I said, Nostrand Avenue ain't the same around here.
Franklin
You know,
Avenue.
what happened to the butcher store? What happened to all these little stores, these mom and pop stores that we used to see in the community? So there's a lot of discussions that are happening, and sadly, we're not aware of it until it already has
Done.
taken
Right.
place.
That's the young sister
Right?
see here, this little
So
today.
these kids today, but not only these kids today, because they need you guys, I think I'm in the middle,
Yeah.
but you guys to show them the way, right? And you're doing this from the heart. And I just say this to say that you guys as community leaders need to take this back home, to have these discussions, to keep the culture viable. That's the only way. Because if you look at the Israelites and you look at the Jewish community, right, and I'm not going to say this to offend anybody, but this is just facts.
Right.
They work as a community.
They
They
do.
keep the money in
In
the
the
community.
community.
We have to circulate our dollars the same way to keep this infrastructure going. We have to have a community. And what I notice, and I'm just going to speak the truth, because you know I'm going to speak the truth.
Yeah.
What I do notice is, yeah, we all have a little bit of an edge because sometimes we're not aware of what's going on. For example, LS-Connxn. You see all these little sponsors coming out, and it's a couple $100 that my friends gonna filter me, and I gotta give you a little credit. We gotta barter.
Right.
Right?
And we
it's not
shouldn't have
real
to.
Corporate funding.
We shouldn't have to.
We shouldn't have to, because what we have is a gold mine. So we got to be able to have community, have these discussions, and then move from the discussions and have action.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Right,
it's gonna
and I
happen.
think we need all that, the LS-Connxn, the USSA, the Juve City.
To Wianca,
When we
to
talk,
Sesame, all
right,
these
we have to talk as
organizations.
one.
Absolutely.
Anytime we go divided,
Right.
they pick us apart.
All the time.
Because even in the pie community, they call me. I said I want $500. They gonna call the next man. He gonna get $3, and we know somebody gonna charge $150.
And Pops, my granddad, Pops, how many times, my dad tells me, because I didn't hear all these stories growing up, you just see the outcome as a child. You know how much times if your grandfather mortgaged this house?
Yes. It's true.
Tell me about it.
It's true. It is true.
You know how much time you almost lose this house? And I laugh because your heart is here. And it's sad because people don't work from the heart anymore. They work from a business standpoint.
Right.
And I think you can work from your heart, but we got to think more like business people. We have to lead, and we have to think, yes, have a heart, but also we got to be more corporate.
I believe we, as a community, we don't know our limitations. We want to do what we can't do. You know, be great in your lane. The other day I had a meeting with the bands, and I'm like, when the United States go to negotiate, they send the best negotiators. They don't show up.
Thank you.
You know, we as a community, we want to go negotiate for ourselves. No, we get the best, send them. We paying you, this is what we want. When we meet with the mayor, we shouldn't meet with the mayor. We should, our lawyer team, our team, our
But I'm
educators.
going to say this. No lawyer could speak what you just said. Nobody can talk from your experience. And you can bring your attorney,
Right.
but they don't know your stories or your struggle. So you need to be in that room. And I'm going to also say, Pops, he was how he would say it. I ain't no educator since I'm mad, and he would laugh because he would deal with the most sophisticated people, right? The mayor,
Right.
and other mayor that came along, and he was a grassroots man.
But he had people with him.
Absolutely, you have to have advisors. But I'm just saying that you have to be in the room because you could speak from example. You could tell those stories that no attorney can tell for you. Just how you're saying it right now.
Thank you.
You
Thank
hit me
you.
in a way that I understand and have a better understanding and perspective. Because there's a lot of things, even though I've been around the culture, I wasn't aware of. Because when did we get a chance to have these discussions?
Never.
There you go.
I gotta agree with her. If I wasn't here, I wouldn't know any of this, to be honest. And I'm very much into music, but I don't know anything. I don't know the history of steel bands. And hearing all this, I don't know this. And I'm also an artist myself, so I'm a big fan of, like I said, preserving the culture. And I feel like every time we're always being manipulated or taken advantage of because we don't know the information or we don't apply the information.
Yes.
I brought this with me. I'm a member of Western American League.
If you don't know, that's like the grandmother.
So, under our former president, Yolanda Lizama Clark, they got $25,000 from the Empire State Development Corporation. And we did an economic survey. I have it for 2003. I don't have all the company that I could give everybody a copy.
Right.
And in this, that year for the parade, the city made $350 million.
You said?
Yes. 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 That's public
information.
Public information.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
They have been broken down with all the communities and everything.
I said it.
And they're saying that we should do another one before the pandemic.
We have to.
But you have to get that kind of money to pay for it. Even though 2003 was 25,000, the Uganda group did it. So when we talk about bringing and money into the city, we have the proof. And wherever I go, and especially with the politicians, they ask me to speak, I tell them I go in political. We only see you all for the breakfast and everybody. You know? And then in a meeting, one of them sent me and said, by her chief of staff, to say she supported us. I said she only gave us $5,000. That is even a drop in the bucket. And what I say to Tony, that what you said about holding, you can't hold we at responsible, which is true. We're struggling. This parade needs to be funded by the city, just like Toronto, London, and all these places. We can't do it alone because we had one sponsor, Yolanda, that gave us $100,000. One in all these years. So we get 25,000, but we get this, we get that. I know to myself, and I appreciate, and I spoke about it, the steel band was for the love of this that they do panorama. There were years we couldn't pay them the prize money. I'm not ashamed to say. We couldn't pay them their prize money. And every year they were there. Every year they were there. And in 2018, they said to me, we didn't finish paying them. We said we're going to pay you by so. They say, Miss Seeley, you say you're going to pay me by so time. You have to sign this. And I did sign it. Because I knew that if I had to get it out of my savings, I would have paid them it. And I really appreciate it. Every year. We used to pay them. Anybody know what a susu is? We give them. The one who win first prize, they might get 10,000. This one get that. The first prize is 20,000. The second is 15, and the third is 12. And the appearance is $4,500. We know that that can't work, but that is what we could afford. And as long as we have to get funding. And you were there in the funeral when they said they're giving us $1 million.
Right.
Where's the $1 million?
But, you know, and with that, it made a false narrative. So, you know, even in my meeting with the band, Bianca got $1 million. I'm saying go on the site and look. Promises is for a fool.
Yeah.
You know, so and this lady back there, proper information, right information. You know, if the right don't know what the left is doing, this will always happen. That's why the Juve City, the Wiaka, the Cloxy, the USSA, you know, yesterday was yesterday. The mass, you know, we hold on to stuff happened 10 years ago. We might not see tomorrow. You know, so if we talking about building the future for the younger ones, we gotta let go of the past and realizes we gotta make a better road for them. You know.
One of the things that I've heard, just in speaking with maybe the electeds, right, just having like conversations about why do we have so much problems finding a, you know, because we'll ask questions. Can we get maybe a space to practice? The band leaders, you know, it's problematic. We recognize that. And it's hard to find space because look at New York. There isn't space, right? We looked at maybe exploring schools, right, as a possibility. Maybe that's a place where you don't have to come out of pocket, and it should be given to you. Because
You do have to come out of pockets.
I mean, in terms of at least you don't have to pay for the actual space. But one of the things, my point is, one of the I'm getting to is that the elected official said, the problem is I'm hearing these things from several areas, from several people, and they get tired of that. They want an organized body with structure, where they feel that I can trust you with city funds, that I know that I'm going to give you this money and it's not going to come back to me.
Right, and that also takes.
That's the biggest problem.
That also takes a certain level of transparency
Absolutely.
and accountability.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let me just say this, that funding revolution will not be televised. And all these entities that we have weakens the body. It really does. To your point, it really does. When you have Pagwa, this one, Waidaka, blah, 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 it weakens. Right. But we should look beyond that though. Eileen, could I put you on the spot about New York State grant?
Yes.
Could I put you on the spot about NIFSCA as they talk about it?
Yeah, well, you know, my name's Eileen. I'm a person who's worked as a helper at DW, Domestic Workers United. And the way that happened, that, you know, we were all connected to each other was I was working with a woman named Ninaj Raoul, who founded Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees. Ninaj was long associated with the women who were doing all the organizing for Domestic Workers United, 20 years of organizing. And we just were introduced because Ninaj figured out that we needed to work together. And she worked with me, and she figured this is someone who knows how to do some of the grant writing. These are the people who have the expertise, like you're talking about, you know, who can speak from the history, you know, people who are, you know, workers who are going to lead their own worker-led movement. And she just did a little matchmaking. She figured, okay, well, if these people work together, something might work out. And then over time, all of us just kept showing up. Yep. And so, you know, hearing your situation here and the landscape, it's so similar to the kinds of things that happen in other situations like the Domestic Workers United. So now a fully worker-led movement. Like I'm coming here and I'm seeing everybody presenting, and it's all happening. It's all happening on its own.
Organic, yeah. Yeah,
you know,
we are the ones we look to.
It's all happening on its own. And 20 years ago, you know, more than 10 years ago, there was that other person who was taking all the money. And it was, you know, you do the work, and it's complicated because it's like, it's not all about money. But like, why does one group of people get no money? And all these other people are just hijacking this tradition and getting all the money. So all I can say is that our experience over time, over the last 7-8 years, was that we just kept showing up. And for a long time, it was not about money. We all just kept showing up and doing the work. You know, I did some grant writing. Vanessa has done some grant writing. We have some allies in the community. There's a New York State Council on the Arts. There's, you know, New York Foundation for the Arts. There's all these entities, and you know, it's part of structural racism. They're largely white-dominated entities, but not completely. And when you have a big community conversation, people keep showing up. You can get some stuff done together. Yes. You know, and some people will understand that they're here to help, and they're not here to go and become the executive director. And because that's how everybody else gets left behind.
Yep.
And so it's just our example. That was our experience. And I feel like, you know, it's rare that you have a gathering where you have all the people you might need to get a whole lot of stuff done. Everybody here could collectively get this done, you know? And so if you commit before you leave today to have another working group meeting, when are we gonna have it, where are we gonna have it? Yep. Everybody wants to see this happen and bring some people together. I mean, I would show up, I'd be happy to show up. You might know a folklore colleague of mine, Chris Moulet. I think he's been somehow connected to trying to keep Juve going. But if you have a union like that, you know, there's a lot of strength in that union. So, you know, set the date. Let people show up. You know, it's not about the allies. It's about the people behind the tradition. It's about the people keeping up the tradition.
I would like to thank everyone.
Thank you.
Like I said, this is a community.
Yep.
And it's not about us, it's about those. I mean, those young ladies and young men.
I ain't too far from them either.
Right. Yeah, so I thank y'all for listening to us.
Are we in the other room? Yes. Okay.
women in reggae. In music. They changed it in music.
It's music.
But I think the focus is going to be perhaps music.
Just
All right, so we have our esteemed panel this afternoon. To my immediate left, Keisha Martin, singer, entrepreneur, wow, phenomenon, can-do person. Next to her, the thorn amongst the roses, Mr. Sidney Mills, former, what was it your role in Steel Pulse?
Musical director,
Head
musical
cook.
director.
Head cook and bottle washer.
Head cook and bottle washer. And Uncle Sid, as I call him, because we both have deep roots with rural Jamaica, St. Thomas, which, if you know anything about Jamaica, St. Thomas is what they call the forgotten parish. Hopefully not for much longer, because they're fixing the roads. Yay! So Sidney Mills is a stalwart in the music industry. He's one of those that goes about his work quietly, and he's actually coming with something that I'm very excited about, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it. But if you look around, you may recognize some faces in the audience. Where love? Where love? That's all I will say. Watch out for it. Next to Uncle Sid, Michelle Arthurton. What can I say about this lady? She's dragged me from obscurity into insecurity and turned me inside out. She saw what I couldn't see. And just from a Facebook post, I now have an internet radio program on E2 On Air, where she's the boss of E2 On Air Studios. Thank you, Michelle, for making me step into my purpose. So you're in for a fabulous evening, because one of these people would have had a mesmerizing story to tell. But all three, I'm going to sit back and let them take it away. Who are we starting with? Michelle? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, and I'm sorry. I think I speak loud enough. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, good afternoon. As Sharon said, I'm Michelle Arthurton, and I'm also a music business consultant, a paralegal, notary. I've started from the bottom, go up, like putting posters up, go to radio, do everything, so I consider myself well-rounded. However, we're going to take this now to, it's going to be a 101 class, so it's like an introduction, and for the English folks, it's like intermediary. So anything that you don't understand, please feel free to make notes, and you can ask questions at the end, okay? I'm going to try and use more layman terms than legal language or whatever. Okay, first we're going to do like administrative tasks. Okay, we're going to need somebody to do this. Okay, what is administrative tasks? They're duties related to maintaining an office or setting. So it's basically about organizing. So as an artist, I know you mightn't have the staff right away or the team, but there's some things that you will also have to take care of. Now, if you're going to start a business, say setting up a record label, which I normally do set up for artists or different people, you can look at either having a sole proprietorship that will be under your name, and you will have to either use your social security number or you get an EIN number. Now, if you don't want to do a sole proprietorship, you can do an LLC, which would be a limited liability company. Or my favorite, which is an incorporation. So if you first of all, you have to get your name, make sure that the name is cleared. Somebody like myself can do that for you. Once that is cleared, then you go and you register. Now, why an incorporation is my favorite is because, say like you have personal bills And I guess a lot of us do have student loans, okay, and other bills. If you have a company and you're a sole proprietor, or somebody like me now can say, all right, Keisha, you owe me and you're not paying me, so I can go now and not only sue you, but I can sue your sole proprietorship. So you call it Keisha's Enterprises or whatever. I can go and sue Keisha Martin and Keisha Enterprises. So any kind of money that you have, I'll be able to recoup. An LLC is kind of 50-50. The corporation, if you owe personally, I cannot pierce that corporate veil to say, well, I'm going to go in and sue the corporation and sue you. So that's why I like to have an incorporation. And if you go to whether a music consultant person or an accountant, and you decide that you're going to do a corporation, make sure you get the benefit of doing it as an S-Corp. Because with an S-Corp, the taxes are much cheaper than a C-Corp, okay? We're gonna do like a music business plan. Oh, we have it up already. Just like a business, you would need a plan. So for an artist, a producer, engineer, songwriter, I always stress that you have a music business plan. This guides you through each stage of your starting and it helps you to manage your music career business. And there are like 7 steps. So if you read along there, you see a music business career allows you to put your passion to work by recording and performing. Start with the artist business plan to ensure you meet your financial goals. This plan will be your roadmap, which will state your goals and chart how to reach them. You have to ask yourself, where am I going to be in 5 years? Or where do I want to be in 5 years? So be prepared to modify your business plan as you go along each year, because I know your career is not going to just stay one place. And then the business plan starts off with the executive summary. Yes, yeah. I'll turn to you and then you can just get that out. Okay. Yes. Okay, the executive summary, this will be like your elevator pitch. How many people know about an elevator pitch or heard about an elevator pitch? Okay, and even though this is going to be on paper, you can still think about doing, like, having an elevator pitch for when you meet someone like Sydney or maybe Jay-Z and you're trying to get on their label or whatever, because these are busy people. An elevator pitch is like, it lasts at least 30 seconds the minute you leave the ground floor to the top floor. Okay, so you have to have this elevator pitch. It has to be short, it has to be memorable, the description of what you do or what you sell. Okay, the goal is to earn a second conversation. So make sure you be engaging, you're friendly, practice your elevator pitch so it's concise and well placed. Okay? Another thing with the elevator pitch, it's never an opportunity to close a deal. It's a quick introduction, and again, no more than 30 seconds. Okay? Everybody got that? Okay. I'm going to try and speed it up because I know we don't really have much time. We're going to go to now the business description in your business plan. State how your business is registered and structured, like the name, the location, management, number of employees, and if you're a sole proprietorship, an LLC, or an incorporation. You can also put your fan base, the stats on your fan base, your earnings, and your growth in that area of your business plan. Then you go to offerings. You will list here all that you do. It's essential to diversify your income streams. The types of services is like, for example, if you do music for events, or you play for hired events, or you're a background singer, or you're doing solo gigs. Diversify in that you can say you do music production. If you do, as an artist, you have some artists who are producers, engineers, and songwriters. So you list it on that part of the business plan. The next step is the audience analysis. Every artist or musician has a target demographic. If you are, say, a reggae artist, you're not trying to put in your business plan that you're targeting, say, polka, the German music, heritage music. You're not trying to target that audience. I mean, in today's time, we do have people who do crossover with some hip hop. You can do that. So, just be concise. And if you also perform for clubs, weddings, state it here, because your audience isn't everyone, okay? So that part is for the audience analysis. You have operations, the marketing plan, right? Yes. Okay, outline your ideas for social media. That is very important. And outline the print, radio, or TV that you plan to do. And if you're going to do like a local reach, and place ads in local or regional papers, TVs, and magazines, you state it here in your marketing plan. If you're doing worldwide or even both, state both in your marketing plan. Build your reach on social media. Open accounts on all major platforms. Post consistently and ensure you have readable content with your brand. Even though I'm not really speaking much on like the social media branding, what I notice, especially with Caribbean and musicians, if you go to Facebook, you're gonna have a different picture to the one on Twitter, to the one on Instagram. No, everything is supposed to correspond, be the same, because that's your brand. So try and stick with your brand. And another thing that I remembered one day, I'm not gonna call the artist's name, but if you're good, you'll know who I'm talking about. I think I told you about this story. For a long time, I hadn't heard any good roots and culture music. When VP was on Flatbush at that time, I went in there and I saw this album and the picture of the artist. I'm like, fine piece of specimen. Let me see what he has to offer in roots and culture, right? So, because he had on a red, green, and gold tam, and he just looked fine. It was a close-up shot. I bought it without hesitating, and I did buy a maxi priest and a couple other stuff. So the first thing I did now, I put that music, that CD into my car. And when I turned it on, it was Lovers Rock. Okay? So it did not match. Okay? I thought it was roots and culture, because here he is, he has on the red, green, and gold tam. But I was very disappointed, but still, the music was nice. So my money wasn't wasted. Operations. In the operations category, you put your to-do list. Write out what you must do daily to keep your music career running. So, just keep a track of what you need to do, and as you go, as I said, you change it up. I mean, this is subject to change. And write what you hope to achieve. Plan and show how you intend to reach your long-term goals. Example, how you're gonna plan on getting 10,000 or 1 million fans or followers on social media. For finance, this is a key point in most of the business plans. Provide an income statement, a cash flow statement, and a balance sheet. This will help to identify the cost of running your business. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, like the accounting terms, your accountant or tax preparer can help you with this section. Okay. Just going through. We're going to look at things a new recording artist or music producer should have. Even though I have it here as new, I've worked with a lot of elders in the business, and most of them, they don't even know stuff about what I just said, and even what I'm about to say. A lot of them are like tone deaf to it. Sorry to use that expression, but they don't. So with what you have to have, of course, you have to have a song, you have to have music, because it will be a musical composition intended to be performed by a human, a voice. And then we're gonna go into copyright. As soon as you have that song, make sure it's copywritten. I don't believe in poor man's copyright. I guess because if you were to do a song and you mailed it back to yourself, and I know you're gonna mail it back to yourself, if I was a thief, I would know how to go about getting that as my own, okay? So you have people in the business who knows how to get around those areas. So always, always copyright your music. That's your most important asset, okay? And I wanted to give you a story on copyright, because back in 2004, 2006, I think we collected like 3-point-something million euros for elders in the business, in the reggae industry. So happened that it was, remember Andre in France?
Yeah.
Okay, Andre, and that's the attorney, and we had paralegal, John. Just so happened in talking with him, John was my neighbor in England, and we didn't even know. So 3 of us, we were working on looking for music for artists who went back to like Alton Ellis days, and then we wanted to collect up to 2000, but they only wanted us to collect, they were only allowing us to collect up to 1999, but we wanted to include Sean Paul in it so he can get some money. However, we were granted that up to 2000, and a lot of the artists, they didn't have their work either they didn't copyright, and you had like the Marleys who Bob Marley's estate got at least 40% of that money, because they could account of who was in the band, when the music was copywritten, and the money that was coming back from mechanicals. Everything was detailed. So that's why I always say it's always good to have your stuff copywritten. Another incident is that I'm not gonna say whether it's a male or female, but an individual's music was playing for a sneaker commercial, and the individual was told to contact me to help get the royalties. When I looked into it, and I did like 2 weeks research, and I also noticed that that individual was missing a lot of money because people like Nicki Minaj, DMX, a couple of other people use the stuff. So I was like, whoa, okay, here we could get that money as well, you know? And I'm calling the person after a while, and then the individual said, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Michelle, but
Actually start here in a minute.
It should be on.
One, I'm not hearing much.
Right. Okay, good.
One, test, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, can you, I guess you can hear that.
Yeah, you can
1, 2,
hear.
okay, fine.
Okay.
Fine. Did Valerie say she wanted us to go ahead and start?
Well, yeah, because I mean, people are waiting. So
All right, folks, we're going to start. Good afternoon. I'm Ray Allen from Brooklyn College, and as I understand it, this session is going to be about some of the history of Calypso and Soca, both here in Brooklyn and back in the Caribbean and the whole transnational flow of things. I'm going to start out. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Brooklyn as a center of soca music, as a kind of golden age of soca music in the 1980s, really beginning maybe in the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And it's kicking out a chapter of my book, Jump Up, if anybody's interested. This is history of carnival music in New York, going back to the Harlem Carnival, and then up through the Brooklyn Carnival. Anyway, I get to thinking, like, you know, what is it that, why did this happen? Why did Brooklyn become such a center of soca music production? Right at that time when Calypso was moving stylistically from the older style Calypso to the more dance-oriented soca music. And a couple of interesting things happened, so I'll just give a little quick history and then we'll hear a little music. One thing was the increase in Brooklyn's West Indian population following 1965, the Hart-Keller Immigration Reform Act, which really opened up the gateways to, come on in folks, opened up the gateway to immigration from the Caribbean and Latin America, among other places. And so Brooklyn, the ground upon which we sit right now, central Brooklyn, really was revitalized by this influx of people from the different English-speaking West Indian islands. So you had a big population of folks here who loved Calypso, right, and who were nostalgic for their home and their country and their culture, and now they had some disposable income so they could buy records, and they could go attend Calypso shows and so forth. So that was a big, that kind of set the foundation for this. In that arrival of people, West Indian folks at that time, were some very important Calypsonians who actually stayed here in Brooklyn and Queens. The Mighty Sparrow, Lord Melody, Calypso Rose, Duke, Nelson, So-So, and later on, Keith Styler, designer, who was actually with us today, who will talk to us about that. So these people came and stayed here, made New York City their base of operations. Also in that crowd were some soon-to-be small business entrepreneurs who would start record companies here in Brooklyn. Most importantly, Granville Straker of Straker's Records, Ralston Charles of Charlie's Records, Michael Gould of B's Records, and Julian Williams, thank you, of J&W. Just to name a few of these small record companies that started right here, literally a stone's throw from where we are, and this was very important that they had that energy to do that. Another historical thing that came together was the establishment of a Brooklyn Labor Day Carnival. Carnival started in New York in Harlem in the late 40s. It closed down in the early 60s because of a so-called riot, which meant somebody threw a brick or a pan at somebody. It was obviously kind of controversial and certainly, racist, the whole idea that we had to shut this thing down, it's too dangerous. You've heard that before, right? You've been hearing this for hundreds of years. Anyway, it resurfaces here in Brooklyn in the neighborhoods, and in 1971, Carlos Azama and Wyatka had the first big parade down Eastern Parkway, right back here, which actually went the other way, right? I believe Herman Hall, who speak soon, was here. And then it changed. Now it goes west. You all know that. So the fact, though, that this parade was important because it became a magnet for musicians, tourists, and of course the community. And so again, the important Calypsonians were coming to Brooklyn to take part in all the tents and performances around Labor Day, and they would record, because all of a sudden these recording studios are opening up. So all these things kind of come together at this critical time. And we'll also say the availability of advanced recording equipment and mixing facilities here in New York was really important. There were studios back in Trinidad and Barbados, but they didn't have the advanced equipment, especially the mixing equipment, to create these, this new soca sound. So all these things kind of come together, and boom, we have this wonderful kind of, the soca revolution is happening right here in Brooklyn. And it was, as I say, a kind of golden age of soca music from the late 70s into the early 90s. And I thought it would be fun to play a couple of pieces of music before we move on to our other speakers. So first of all, who's out there old enough? Some of you remember Shadow and Bassman. This was Granville Straker's probably first biggest hit. He started, his first recording was in 1969, a Sparrow, in a club called the Blue Cornet here in Bedford-Stuyvesant. It was a live recording, and that kind of got his record company going. But the really big hit was Bassman with Shadow. And this was 1974. And I'm going to see if I can make some of this work. Here we go. This should be it. So, remember this one. Come on.
I was planning to forget Calypso and one black piece in Tobago, but I am afraid I can't make it. I hear in a place running like that.
This is Caribbean vibes.
I don't know how this thing gets inside me, but every morning it drives me crazy. Like DJ in me head, for a hand yard, morning and evening, like this fella going hard. And if I don't want to sing, when it starts to do it, I don't want to, but I have to sing. And if I don't want to dance, he just have me in a trance. I don't want to, but I have to dance. So bing bong, bong, bing bong, bong, bing bong, bong, ding 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 dong, bong 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 ding bong bong, bong, bing bong, bong, bing bong, bong, ding 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 dong 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 dong.
And so forth. Yeah, hard to stop, isn't it? So wonderful. When that record came out, people weren't using the word soca in 1974, and yet you start to hear some of the elements of soca, especially the very heavy bass line moving and the faster tempo. So in retrospect, looking back, we can say this was really a prototype of soca before the term was even there, and that was really thanks to Granville Straker. He told me Shadow walked into his store one day and started humming this song, and Straker said, well, I like that, give me some more of that. And so he sang it, and then they said, okay, let's record it. They got Art Dakota to arrange it, and you know, the rest is history. Okay, so that's Granville Straker. The one other person I'll mention today is Ralston Charles, who I believe is going to be here tomorrow for something. But you all know Charlie's Records, I assume, up on Nostrand Avenue. It's still there. Straker was from St. Vincent, but Charles, born in Tobago, but grew up in Trinidad. Came here in 1967. He told me he had a suitcase under one arm and a Kitchener album under the other. And he started a business of basically, he had a delivery service, you know, a car service and such, and eventually opened a record shop. I believe it was the early 1970s, and then started recording his own music. And again, he was right there at that kind of magic moment when we're moving from soca into, calypso into soca. And I thought I would play, let me see if I can make this come up on my phone. Yes, here we go. Okay. This is a song by Calypso Rose called Tempo, which some of you, again, some of you folks have been around a little bit, might have heard. Rose was one of those artists who moved to New York. She relocated in Queens, and she told me that one day she was riding in on the subway into Manhattan, where she was going to school in criminology, she studied criminology, and the clacking of the train got this kind of groove going in her head. So as soon as she got to school, she said she ran into the women's room, got out a piece of paper, and started writing lyrics, and that became Tempo, the song we know. What's interesting is, though, so she knew Charlie, and she sang it to Charlie. I guess she made a little cassette of her just singing it, you know, with a guitar. And next time he was in Trinidad, Charlie gave it to Art Dakota, which some of you may know is a very famous sort of older school arranger. And so he put together an arrangement, and Charlie didn't like it. And he said he threw it in the garbage can. He was really disappointed. And everybody said, what are you, crazy, Charlie? This is Art Dakota. Anyway, he gave the cassette tape to a young guy named Pelham Goddard, who some of you probably have heard. I'm seeing we have fans out there, good. And Goddard was pretty much unknown at that point, and he put the following arrangement together. Here's Rose. This is 1977.
It's people like red, nothing but a spin, but it's still not magic street.
soca, aren't we? Because you hear the fast tempo, the synthesizer up front, the very kind of party-oriented lyrics. So this was a big hit for Rolf and Charles and for Calypso Rose. I believe it won the Road March in 1977 in Trinidad. And, you know, she was already very well known by then, but this really established her as the star, the queen of Calypso. I'm going to kind of stop there, having talked about those two folks, and just say that Brooklyn began to recede as a center of the production of soca music by the early 90s for a number of reasons. According to Charlie and Straker, one was the pirating of CDs. CDs came in, people started burning CDs, they weren't buying records, they wouldn't even buy CDs. So that really hurt the small companies like Charlie's and Straker's and B's more than, of course, the big companies that could absorb it. So that was a real huge problem for them. And also, you've got better recording facilities back in the Caribbean, both in Trinidad and Barbados, and especially Eddie Grant's ICE label in the 90s signed a lot of the big Calypso soca stars. So Brooklyn kind of receded from that, and you know, there's not that much production going on anymore here in Brooklyn, as far as I can tell. There are a few people who are still doing some things, but you know, will there be a renaissance? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe one thing to talk about later is it concerns me that so many people are now just singing to tracks instead of live brass bands. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a 20th century person, a dinosaur, but I really love the brass band accompaniments to both soca and Calypso. I can see some of you do too. But we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, let me stop. I've gone too long. And let me ask Megan Sylvester to now come and talk to us more about Calypso. She teaches at Queens and Tech, in, courses in Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean history and music. And then she will bring on a friend. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Megan Sylvester. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the same type of music, but talking about the movement from New York, as Ray would have started, and back to Trinidad, and then coming back to New York, and how that had an impact on the music. I really want to focus on a particular artist. Of course, it's going to be Designer, and I'm going to actually play for you the juxtaposition of one of his hits, all right, which would have been Ratty Ray, and then I'm going to talk about Calypso, which is another song that he would have done with Professor Fillmore. And I want you to listen, actually, as Ray's looking for it feverishly, listen to the song, to the songs, actually, to hear the difference. And we're looking at one particular artist, and what I'm really talking about is what is the impact of migration to New York. We started about talking about the fact that a lot of Trinidadians and people from the Caribbean, because he spoke about Straker, right? He spoke about Straker being from St. Vincent, and there were many other artists who would have been coming from the Caribbean to New York to exploit their careers, to get involved in the industry because of the presence of the recording opportunities. And one of the things that I have noticed in my research is the fact that the music actually changed. How did it change? It changed in terms of the beat, the sound, the cadence, the meter. Everything about it changed. And you had the influence of the music from New York and the United States having more of an impact on Calypso music and soca music. So what we hear is, in particular, looking at the work that Designer has produced, an influence of R&B, an influence of soul music. Of course, we know that Calypso and soca, you know, there's soul involved in it, with soca being the soul of Calypso. But we see a change in the sound, and that becomes important for us to trace and understand how did our music from Trinidad and Tobago actually change. The indigenous music changed in the way that it sounded. In addition, even though we're going to just focus on Designer's music, what I want to also do is just mention the fact that you would have had bands also having that change in terms of Carl and Carol Jacobs. Some of you all may be familiar with them. And they had a different kind of sound from that strict, traditional soca sound that was coming from Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to also mention, so that's an artist and that's a band. And if we look, and my point that I am making is that migration had a really serious impact, because if we look at artists today, all right, so we're talking about yesteryear, we're talking about 20th century, we're talking about what's happened, we speak about Designer, we speak about Carl and Carol Jacobs, and we're talking about the 80s and the 90s. But what are we seeing now? Yeah? in the 2000s or in the last 10 years. We can talk about voice and the way in which his music sounds different. And I am making the point that that is coming from the work that artists like Designer would have produced in terms of the influence that would have taken place because of the migration to the United States and how that had an impact in terms of working with the producers up here and, you know, the impact of and the influence of the sound from the space in which you are making the music, all right? Even though there would have been the movement where artists would have been going back for Trinidad Carnival to perform in calypso competitions and in soca competitions, they were making music for two different markets. And that is part of what I am suggesting. And that in and of itself would have had an impact on the sound. So if you could just play Ratty Ray so we hear that, yeah?
Yo! This one is for folks who love to jam. Carnival 92. Yeah, what we going to do? Coming on, singing one song. It's jamming time. Yeah, the chorus and ratty, 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 ray. Jam one another, ratty, 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 ray. So it is over, rocking it up, rocking it up, yeah, shaking it up, taking it up. Oh, ratty, 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 ray. Jam one another, ratty, 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 ray. So it is over, so it is over, so it is over.
So it's important for us to consider a couple things. So Desire was actually in New York already when he went back to Trinidad to produce this song, to have this song for Trinidad Carnival. The important thing is, as I said earlier, producing music for two different markets. So he has already migrated in New York, but then he's producing music for a particular carnival. The next song that I'm going to play is actually a song that's going to speak to music that's being made not necessarily for the festival of Carnival, but it's a song, actually an ode, a love song to Calypso, and it was done with, of course, Ken Professor Fillmore, who Designer would have worked with in terms of Pan by Storm and some other songs for Trinidad Steel Pan Festival.
So Fillmore's playing the steel pan on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see if this will go.
So it's important to listen to the difference in the song. So I'm making the point that there is the impact of the impact of North American music in terms of the rhythm and blues. Go ahead.
Like a diamond in the night, shining bright. She's alright. Magical. Yes, her charm is so magical. She takes all the blues away any day. She's okay. I want you to be right here every year. I fill my heart with music all the way. Your route takes me all guess that's my fire. Ooh, baby, just wanna hold her tight day and night. Calypso music feels so good.
So we see it's the same artist, and I trust that you'll be able to hear the difference in the song. All right, and so of course that is a song some of you perhaps have never heard, because it is not linked to the Festival of Carnival, but it is music that is being produced by a Trinidadian who has migrated to New York, and the impact, right, of the space that it has on this song. All right. Now, what I want to do actually.
I just want to say one thing. It occurred to me, if I could interrupt, that this second piece. You weren't singing in what to my ear, and again, I'm not West Indian, but as an American listener and when a real fan of R&B, it sounded much more R&B inflected than it did. I might not have known that was a Caribbean person singing it if I didn't know you and I weren't part of the culture. So I think maybe that's part of the crossover.
Exactly, appeal as well. And you are right, and that is the whole point. Making music for two markets
So
because of the impact.
Since designer is here.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do now.
You have that in mind.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was trying to reach as much people as I can.
Exactly.
Right. So now what I want to do, thanks Tilman, is that I want to actually introduce designer, Keith Designer Styler, which is what he goes by now, to speak a little bit about what Ray started to speak about and what I also have been speaking about, because he would have worked with Straker and he would have worked with Charlie, all right, as well as Julian, so that he can now speak to his experiences and that question that Tilman asked about what was the reason for the difference in sound.
Greetings, greetings.
Yes. Come. Have a seat.
You guys hear me, right?
Just need to get a chair.
Oh.
Just take a chair. It's same chair, same chair. Yeah. Right. Oh.
Yeah, this is better for you.
Come on this side. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
It's your Ben. How you doing, my brother? We'll talk afterwards. Yeah.
Hi.
Do you want to give him a microphone?
Stop that. Sorry. That was your intro.
On your mic. Right.
All right. Greetings and welcome to everyone. Thanks for having me here, Valerie and the crew. Well, I came to America. I came in the late 70s. I used to come here in summer, spend the summers with my grandmother. And but I was into the music in Trinidad. You know, my household, my father, my mother, you know, encouraged me and supported my entry into the Calypso field. I started out in the Calypso tents with Shadow and Black Stallion and Valentino and the guys. William Monroe is the guy who actually gave me my break to sing in the Calypso dance. And then like in 1978, I came here for the first time, 79, and I was trying to get into, become a recording artist. And my first recording actually was done by Shadow. He wrote the song and produced it. And you know, I'm singing in the tent and doing the recordings and stuff. And then I became a background vocalist. So I sang on a lot of hits. We started looking for a hit song, like every other artist. We looking for a hit song. We're looking for a good producer. And I made the finals. I didn't record the song that I made the finals the first time, Calypso Monarch finals. When I was in the Savannah, some of you guys familiar with the Savannah, the Marsh Grab. Charlie came to me before I go on stage and he said, we're going to work, because sending him tapes and singing stuff for him, and he said, "You ain't ready, man, you ain't ready." And that was 1982. So, you know, you always record the year before for Carnival. So the fall of 1982, we were writing songs. I used to, you know, Super Blue and I were very good friends, so we used to hang out. And we were looking for songs, and Charlie, every song we take there, we said, "Nah, that ain't ready." And finally we come up with a song called Feeling Nice. And he said, "Yeah, we're gonna go." So that was my first hit.
Ray wants to play it so that so that the audience can enjoy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Feeling Nice, yeah.
Keep talking for a minute. I'll find it.
Yeah, so
okay, here I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Meridian Bennett.
From England, made a very serious prediction. Said the world could end up in trouble if the music industry crumbled. They must resort to soca, for things to stay in order. So I'm so happy. Oh, I'm feeling nice now.
Can I just, that was 1982.
1983.
And
but it was recorded in the fall of 1982.
Was that recorded in Brooklyn or in here?
It was recorded in New York City at a studio called The Ranch.
And this was with Ralston Charles?
This was with Ralston. He was the producer, executive producer. Ed Watson was the arranger. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So, so I was doing the recordings, and then I was a session musician also, because I was doing background vocals for all these songs coming out of Charlie and Straker labels. Working with everybody, you know, and you come with a hit song, so you gotta come again, you know. And Charlie was you know, he's a stylish guy.
He's got us beat.
Yeah. And you know, I think we had one vision in terms of reaching as much people, you know, taking the music to the next level, you know, not forgetting where we came from, using that as a fuel. So, you know, I did another album with Charlie, and we tried to go a little more cutting edge. It wasn't successful, but we tried, and we, you know, then I started. I changed labels, and I did a recording with Ralph McDonald, American percussionist. And he was trying to get some, you know, get major labels involved and stuff. And that music was even more trying to cross over. And then I met Ken Professor Fillmore. We did Pan by Storm in 1990. And then the next year, we did Calypso, the song you heard earlier. And well, you know, like some of you guys never heard the song before, but I was trying. I always, when I do my music, I always try to reach as much people, you know, across the different genres. You know, I did some songs where I did some dancehall rhythms with soca earlier on. I did some songs with that R&B influence. I've done some songs where I try to mix rock and roll with calypso.
Yeah.
How did the name come about? You were going with you saying that Charlie's a stylish person, so I thought designer.
Oh, no. Designer came long before that. My father called me designer. We were going to the Calypso tent. Short story, we were going to the Calypso tent, and he asked me, he said, so when you get there, what are you going to tell them your name? Because everybody had a sobriquet. What are you going to tell them? I said, my name is Keith. He said, nah, you can't do that. You had to come up with a name. So we driving, and we looking at billboards. And he said, you know what? Just tell them your name is designer. I don't know when, just pop in his head. Yeah, he said, just tell them your name is designer. And they ask you, say your name is designer.
Work.
Yeah, and that was it. But lately, maybe about 10 years ago, I added on the Keith Styler. Yeah. So if you're gonna Google me now, if you're gonna go onto YouTube, you'll see Keith Designer Style.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we want to do right now is we want to turn it back to Herman, to Ray, so he can introduce Herman. And
So
then
just stay with us, and we could ask some
Take a
questions in just a minute, but
Yeah.
our last speaker is Herman Hall, who many of you may know as the editor of Everybody's Magazine. If you don't, you should know this. And just written a fabulous book on Julian Fedon, a revolutionary from Grenada, where in fact Herman is from. So he's been a long-time observer of Brooklyn Carnival, like from the beginning. So he could talk about anything, but I thought maybe you could want to talk a little bit about the Brooklyn Calypso Soca, and especially Shadow, since you were so closely working with Shadow and so forth. So, Herman Hall, please.
Okay, thank you. But rather than trying to make any formal presentation, I just wanted to do maybe some laundry cleaning, or just to clarify or to reinforce some of the points that were made. In mentioning Charlie and Strick and so forth, a key name, he operated out of the Bronx, and that was Camille Records from the United States Virgin Islands. As a matter of fact, Camille came before all of them. And for those of you who know Lord Nelson, as you know, he received an honorary degree from the UWI in October. As a matter of fact, I'm sure some of you may know the Garrett Bounce, which was one of Nelson's first hits. It was Camille Records, so Camille had a lot of those Calypsonians. But again, apparently we are talking about modern time Calypso. But for the young lady who is right here, Calypsos here in New York started since in the 20s and 30s. The Calypsonians came to record in the United States in the 30s and 40s, and so most of the classic. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I have enough issues of the latest issue of the magazine, where there's an article about written by a Calypso researcher out of Alaska, Ray Funk, where he connected the Calypso with the British monarchy. The same thing here. In the United States, the early Calypsonians, this was the past to me is the most successful time in Calypso. The late 30s and 40s, where the Calypsonians sang about the abdication of King Edward VIII. This is why we had Queen Elizabeth, because her uncle had abdicated the throne. So his brother, which was Queen Elizabeth's father, became. And if you want to know the history of World War II, you can just listen to all the Calypsonians. Hitler's Moustache We Want, and so forth. And then we transition that the first selling, well, we don't say CD, no one, it's little 45s. Very few people may know what is 45. You know what's a 45? Okay, very small. The most successful 45 in the United States to sell over 1 million was a Calypso. It was Rum and Coca-Cola, recorded by the Andrews Sisters. And it also went to become one of the most famous cases in the music industry. Because a man, if you're old as me or you're dribbling like me, and you look at the old Maury Amsterdam television shows, you will see a bald-headed guy named the Dick Van Dyke Shriment. You will see a guy named Maury Amsterdam. He was a soldier in Trinidad during World War II. So he thought those countries were so primitive. So he said the tune was his. And then when it became famous with the Andrews Sisters, it became a big lawsuit. It was recorded by Lord Invader. Invader got over $200,000, which by today would have been millions of dollars in compensation.
You want to hear it?
Yes.
This is Invader. This is the Invader.
Right.
Real old style calypso, recorded in New York. Sorry, that's all I can get out of it.
And when the Yankees first went to Trinidad, some of the young girls were more than glad. They said that the Yankees treat them nice, and they give them a better price. They buy rum and Coca-Cola, went down Point Cumana, both mothers and daughters, working for the Yankees.
No, if
you know what the Andrews Sisters?
No, if you listen to that, so if you listen to that, if you listen to the lyrics, now somebody by the name of Slinger Francisco will climax that tune, because this tune is about Trinidad women, and in the days, you know, bluntly selling themselves for the Yankee dollars, and it was. People would have done that in those days. You can't blame nobody. People was hungry during World War II. But then, after the war ended and the Americans left, so the ladies of the night, or what you want to say, were now harder. And this is where Sparrow comes in 55 with Jane and Dinah, Rosette and Clementina. So all those, there's a evolved, Calypso evolved. Let me see what else. Right, so as I mentioned, the early recordings, just as how the marketing, the professor here said that modern day, the 90s, the 2000s and so forth, the Marshall Montanas and so forth, they record from a marketing perspective. The same thing for the Calypsonians of the 30s. They recorded basically for an international audience. And you have to remember, racism was at its rampant. And the biggest music, there was a time Calypso was popular as rock. Actually, you know, the Village Vanguard, this is where you get all the Calypsos, where all the people who own H.R. Macy's, Corbett's, all those departments, the owners, they were there. I noticed you also spoke about Shadow. Shadow would have been, was he here, he would have been proud to know that designer has recognized him. Because Shadow was big into designer, and Shadow was extremely modest. I never even knew that he had wrote Designer's one of his first tunes. But Shadow again was a very sensitive person, and he knows people who is thankful to him. On the other hand, most people don't know that most of the early tunes with Marshall Montana what he used to sing down in Florida was written by Shadow, but Shadow represents the old-time Calypsonians. What you wrote, you gave somebody the music and somebody that just recorded. It was not these days where it is now a business, so there is copyright and there's all sorts of stuff with it. But Shadow always felt that he didn't get the respect that, especially when Montano years later would say, well, you have to be on my concert in order for you to be on my album. And when I asked Montano, did you tell Shadow? He said yes. I couldn't believe that, but Shadow would have been very, very proud to that designer has recognized him.
Yeah.
Then you spoke about the jazz and the infusion. Now, if you listen to the music of the 40s also, especially by Gerald Clark band that performed the music for all the Calypsonians, there's always that blackness in the music. So American jazz was in a lot of the calypsos in the 1930s and 40s. And then we just mentioned Ralph McDonald. Ralph McDonald's father in Harlem, Ralph was born, I'm assuming, in Harlem, but his father was one of the first organizers, or early organizers of Carnival in Harlem. We remember Carnival in Harlem started indoors way back in the 1930s. The first outdoors we know was in the 40s, but it actually started the weekend before Ash Wednesday in basements and houses in Brooklyn.
Let me ask you, let me stop you for a minute. Was that called Claudia Jones?
Who?
Claudia Jones. Was she an organizer?
Yeah, I heard of her.
Right, I mean when they extradited her to England because of her Marxist.
Oh yeah, okay,
so
later. But okay, I heard of her name related to England, now that you mentioned that.
But
I think she briefly in New York.
Yeah, in Harlem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I say that to say Caribbean women has been organizing for eons, as you talk about the 20s. We have been organizing for years.
Right, well actually, no, well again, early carnival in New York. You're correct. Early carnival in Harlem, where it all started, was primarily organized by women. The women, I mean, again, you have to remember, you have to look at the 30s, 40s, especially the 30s and early 40s, where racism was rampant. So you get together in each other's basement. The male brought the rum, and everything, and the women cook. And as a matter of fact, one of the most classic articles, if any one of you young students are into the music of history of Calypso, I would really encourage you to read the July 1939 of the New Yorker. How many of us know the New Yorker? Right, the New Yorker is like the cream of the magazine, what is left of the magazine industry right now. And there is this, like about 6 pages of Calypso and Carnival in Harlem in 1939. That's a very, very good article to read it. So that is basically the laundry I wanted to do. What else you wanted me to say now?
Well, hang on, we'll have some questions.
Okay.
But we, Megan wanted to mention one more thing, and we were talking before, and I was saying that I felt disappointed that the brass band's tradition seems to be somewhat dying out in terms of calypso and soca music. But she made a good point, which please make.
Right. So I wanted to make mention of the point that the brass band has actually sort of returned to the carnival. And I wanted to mention that key designer Styler actually plays with Etienne Charles, who is credited with bringing that back to the streets. And I wanted him to get an opportunity to just talk briefly about this experience of being in this band on the streets in Trinidad for Carnival, on Carnival Monday.
Oh, yes. About 5 years ago, but Etienne had this dream, this vision of bringing back the brass on the road. We used to play, him and I used to play in Arrow's band. We would tour with Arrow throughout the Caribbean and stuff. And one night he told me that, you want to do that? You want to bring the brass back? Because I was unaware that it had disappeared. I thought the focus just wasn't on that no more, but nobody was really playing brass on the road. So when he said that, I was a little surprised, but then we put it together, and we've been going 5 years strong now, and it's grown. Next year we're doing 2 days. We were doing Monday alone, now we're doing Monday and Tuesday. And it's well received, the following is great. You know, he had to extend and bring other bands in, and you know, it looks really, really good going into the future.
Can we do it on Eastern Parkway next year? Huh?
Well, you know what? He
Wouldn't
was thinking about Eastern Parkway before the pandemic. But I don't know. I think he couldn't get his sponsorship together, so we went to Toronto with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we got to do Eastern Parkway, huh? Because
Yes.
Charles, he just did a big program at Lincoln Center,
Yes.
and he's really on the forefront of pushing maybe what you might call calypso jazz or Creole jazz for
Yes.
incredible musician.
Yeah.
And I believe he's teaching at University of Miami now,
Yes,
so
yes.
he's around anyway. Okay. Should we do some questions while we still have the room? Does anybody?
I'm curious. Let me just ask the design. Thank you. I'm curious because what transition or motivates you to sort of cross over? Is it that I kind of want to answer the question too? Is it because I'm sorry. Is it because I mean, as Calypsonians, right? We sing to Trinidad,
right?
That we know about the whole political landscape, the social, political. Is it that you tend to move? And I guess for every Calypsonian, what happens? What really happens?
Well, when you're based in Trinidad and you stay in Trinidad, and you want to please the audience there. When I migrated, I started to have American friends. I started to go to the American clubs. I got gonged in a gong show one time in Manhattan. You know, so I was venturing out and meeting new people and stuff. So I wanted to, when I talk about my music, I wanted them to be able to relate to it. That's my story. And I know some other guys like that too, you know.
Because I feel like and it's patriotism either. I mean, staying true to who you are, and it's a good thing. We should grow and we should evolve. But in quarters I hear, well, our music ain't doing so good because we're singing about that thing that we sing about around the tent over here. You know, people aren't assimilated into that kind of thing. So.
Well, the political commentary, I would say. The political commentary is centered around Trinidad, and most times people here can't relate to it. The social commentary now is more international. That means the songs that Stalin sang, and some of the songs Valentino and even Shadow, David Rudder, you know, is more international. So I wouldn't say we're losing ourselves. I ain't lose myself. I always, when I want to get centered, you know who's the artist I listen to? Andre Tanker. When I want to go back to roots, I listen to Andre Tanker, I listen to Shadow. You know, I was playing Shadow in the house and my son said, who is that? What's that? He's born here. And I say, it's Shadow. You know, and I tried to teach him about stuff. So I ain't lose myself. I don't know who.
But this is the point that I was making about making music for different markets. And I think that in the research that I've done, I've seen that a lot of persons have done that. Bands have done it as well as individuals because they recognize that there's a particular topic or particular topics that have value for Trinidad Carnival. But when you step out of that space, you have to become more, have that kind of appeal. Yeah?
I just want to make a comment also on that, Shadow. How many of you here, I'm sure many of you have seen that old-time movie. It was a blockbuster, I think, in the 1990s. It was about the headmaster, the Hollywood movie about the headmaster in New Jersey.
Lean on Me.
Lean on Me. Okay, so how many of you here knew that Shadow music Everybody Somebody. Now, Amanda Seales, though you young people know who is Amanda Seales, right? The female, one of the early rising black female comedians, Saturday Night Live, and all those shows, right? So she was at the King's Theatre the other day, and she sang, whatever you call it, a little excerpt from one of the songs in Lean on Me. So backstage, backstage I was telling Amanda that about the Everybody Somebody. So it's called Everybody Somebody. It was not in calypso melody, or I'm not a musician. It was also say thank you. Even when I was 3 months old, they used to laugh at me because I couldn't Google Gaga. No, they were laughing at me when I was 3 months old. So when you say I still cannot pronounce, you know the reason. Always have been laughed at. Right. So that tune is in Shadow tune. So and then somebody was arguing with me the other day, and I said, well, you wouldn't see Shadow, you wouldn't hear calypso. Just look at the credit line and you will see Winston Bailey. Because it's I who did the negotiation. We were paid a few $1,000s for it, not big, but at that particular time, it was good. And then just before Frank Sinatra died, I was in negotiation for that tune, Music, better known as Dingole.
Yeah.
Right. Frank Sinatra, people had approached me, and they said, Mr. Sinatra, I love that song.
Wow.
And he wanted to do it his own way, Lean on Me. I mean, Dingole or music. Wherever you go, music, all over the world, something like that. So this is how it, so some calypsos are geared for international audiences. I think personally, right now, the downfall, if you want to call it, of calypso, which we say, you have to remember that we don't look at the business of calypso, but calypso is a business. We usually believe in the old days that the calypsonian is one who drink and womanize and he didn't have a family. So as a result, we never see it as a business. We never envision the calypsonian as a business. Today's young artists, obviously, are totally different. I mean, they see it as a business. And some of these other calypsonians, they just sang, and we never saw it in that way.
You had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Mr. Hall, thank you. Very empowering. My question is, all that knowledge that you have, right? For me, I consider myself young, right? But for the younger generation, how do we get that information across, right? And how do we build on it? I mean, as the professors talk about the genres, right, for the different audiences, the different countries, whatever that culture is made. But that information, right, a lot of our history gets lost. How do we continue to share and build in whatever direction it may take us?
And before I answer her question, let me just add something. And I guess to the professor, I'm coming back to Claudia Jones. I'm sitting with some socialists in a meeting, and that's how it came up, right? So I'm saying this to say, we segue into the calypso. And to her point, even Claudia Jones, how much of us know Claudia Jones is the heart and soul of Trinidad?
Right.
We know
has actually written about her.
Okay. We know that she's been to how she's been, so how she ended up in England and died in England as a Marxist or whatever. We know that side of her, but we know who this Claudia Jones is.
But that's what I'm saying. So that in answer to your question, as we speak about Claudia Jones, there's a book that has been written about Claudia Jones, and the writer is Carol Boyce Davies, who's from Barataria. Right? And so it becomes important to know that books are being written. Content is there, but I guess it's
how do we get it into the schools?
Right. So that is on a different level.
Right, because remember, there is history, right? Caribbean history in colleges and school, but who writes it, right? Who tells our story?
It's a combination of persons, actually. It's a combination of persons who are nationals, who continue to live in Trinidad or live in the Caribbean, people who have migrated, and people who are not indigenous at all and are fascinated with the culture. And so that what you have to do is to do the research, right, to get the information about our culture and our heritage. Yeah.
But that's a good question she raised, because at large, how do we get it into our schools?
Right.
This is a Caribbean community.
Right.
Our kids are totally disconnected.
Right.
Even from Martin Luther King, talking like Michael, it's true too.
Yes, yes.
I mean, as somebody, let me just say this, as somebody, let me just, to your point, as an organizer here for immigrant women of color, nannies, caregivers, academe, I have no problem with academe. They come into the room, they search out people who study. They won't speak to people like me, right? That's why we have, that's why organizations are weakened, because we follow. I mean, forming the National Domestic Workers Alliance in Atlanta, Georgia in 2007. Nobody knows that story until I tell that backstory. That's why we stay the course to tell the stories. Because academe will come in and they'll put a mic in your face, your face, your face, your face, my face, and it's not a story. Hello. So yeah, it's time to stay true to those stories. I'm on the front line too. Hello.
And then also we have Caribbean Heritage Month, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? No.
I'd like to mention Caribbean
Nelson
Heritage
Clare,
Month,
Nelson Clare.
which I'm not that basically big on that. To me, we just split. You have Grenada Day, Trinidad Day, Tobago, not only Trinidad Day, but Tobago Day. Not only Grenada Day, but Carriacou Day, Guyana Day. So everybody have a day, right? And we splinter. But I forget what the point I was going to make. Just remind me.
About the Caribbean Heritage.
Well, yeah, right. It's right. So we have Caribbean Heritage Month, which was created by President Bush, the second Bush, from a political perspective, right? So when I look at Caribbean Heritage Month, it's a bunch of people in tuxedos giving each other plaques. So Caribbean history is African American history. Caribbean history is Black history. We already have Black History Month in February. Why can't we build on it? Okay, you ask about some of the writing. People like me, I have been on business on my own maybe for the last 40 or 45 years. Doing little things, not big set of money, radio, this, hustling a book, magazines, this, that, and the other, right? But how many of us see what I do as a business? We want it for free. It's simple as that. Take this book. This is my latest book. It is called Julian Feddo. This was a 1795 revolution in Grenada, which affected Jamaica and the whole British West Indies during slavery. And you know who I've been writing about it is non-Caribbean people. I'm basically the first Caribbean person to write 2 books on Julian Feddo. And you know, this book, I've sold close to 5,000 books now. And I can tell you, within the Grenadian community, maybe I sold about 50. And in the broader Caribbean community. Now, in those books, if you want to understand Grenadians going to Trinidad, it didn't start in the 20th century. It started since in 1762, right? But those things are there. It's just that because we know each other, we don't see it, what we do as a profession, so we look down on it. In terms of carnival, I joined Carlos Lizama around 1968-69. I came in the country in 67. And I became a full-fledged member of the West Indian American Day Carnival Association in 1971. And most of this stuff, in those days, Lizam and all of them were subway workers. The wives were basically either nurses or nurses aid in those days. And they all were already in their 40s and 50s. And there come this person going to Brooklyn College. I was in my early 20s. So I was the dog they put to do all the work. And so I have a very good knowledge. Moreover, history, when I went to secondary school in Grenada, the GCE, I don't know if any one of you all here know what was GCE. In those days, somebody in England had to correct your papers and say whether you earn a general certificate of education. So I remember I failed everything except one, history. Got a distinction, A+, and so forth. And over the years, even when I taught in Grenada, they always were asking me to be a professor of history. And when I went to Brooklyn College, the professor there was asking me, begging me, why don't you continue with history? So as if God gave me one talent only, and it's history. So those of you who have not seen there's a lot of articles in everybody's magazine about the history of Carnival in Brooklyn. Lots and lots and lots over the years. And that magazine is one of the oldest of the black magazines in the United States. Okay? It is, it will be 45 years old next year, or this year. Now, we have been announcing, for example, our person of the year. Do you know who was our first, the very first person of the year? Everybody thought I wasn't going to make it for 1 year with the magazine. So it's having started it in 77. In 78 was a big year. We decided to celebrate the first anniversary. And a lady, she died last year at 104. She said, why don't you honor some people? And 1977 was a big year for Trinidad and women in general, because LS-Connxn became the first black woman to win Miss Universe. A rare achievement at that time. In those days, I was on the WLIB radio, and when she went up to the Empire State Building to take that photo shoot the next day, she said no one had connected yet with her in Trinidad. And of course, when she went back to Trinidad, no other than Dr. Williams was right there to greet her at the airport. But 77 also compounded with the lady we just heard, Calypso Rose. So in 78, Calypso Rose and LS-Connxn was our Women of the Year. Now what we have now is our Person of the Year. And in another 2 weeks we will be announcing the Person of the Year, which is now, everybody hear about Time Magazine Person of the Year, which everybody will be hearing about. I think it's on December 13th, Time is going to announce the Person of the Year.
You're not going to tell us now?
Yeah, we will announce ours in a few days' time. I mean, just after we are waiting. But what I'm saying is that the point I'm making, we do everything that a mainstream magazine will do. The only difference, the poor little publisher is still me, right? So we're down to ignore such writing, and those writings are right there. All that you have to do is to Google it, and I will pass around this list. If anyone wants to get a magazine, I'll be more than happy to mail it. Now, we are not a newspaper or a little something, you know, newspapers, cheap papers that you can put and everybody get it for free. So for example, take Caribbean Life. It's been around, right?
Yeah.
Caribbean Life is not even owned by Caribbean people, right? Most people don't know that, right? It's owned by a big conglomerate. The people who own Metro, New York, and all those big publications, they own Caribbean Life. But on the other hand, it's very, very thin. This newspaper is very cheap to do. I mean, not in terms of the writing, but in terms of the paper. Magazines are many times more expensive to produce. So you would not find that magazine every and anywhere. The magazine is a subscriber-based magazine. People like Shirley Chisholm or have been Pussy Sutton. I could name quite a number of people. Colin Powell, who died last year, he was a subscriber. When he was National Security Advisor to Reagan in the White House, most people don't know he was the first black National Security Advisor. He gave us an interview. So the point I'm making, when the lady asked the question, how do we get the information is there? It's just that because it's one of us who produce it, we tend to ignore it, you know. But as part of the list, and anyone could write that legibly your name and address, and I'll be more than happy to put you on the mailing list.
Good, and I just want to add to what Herman is saying, that I have also published, I have over 20 publications talking about Calypso and Soca, all right? From Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and talking most recently about the New York experience. And so again, as he indicated, when it's not somebody who is famous, I guess, who is publishing and producing, maybe less people know about it. But in terms of the specific question about how to get it into schools, I would be interested to know, because what I did in Trinidad is that I got it into colleges. I got it into those spaces, right? Working with principals, working with the executive directors, you know, and some of the heads of those departments. But in terms of this particular space, I would be interested to hear how possible it is, because I do think that people need to know, right, from persons from Trinidad and Tobago or from the region about what our history is, instead of letting other people tell our story. Yeah?
And I just wanted to say also that, I mean, and I do hear and I do understand where you're coming from. But also, I think the main point that I was trying to get across was the fact that from the youths, from small, that should be infused as part of our culture, as the Jews do, right? You know, they make sure their history is preserved and that the youths know it, right? And are passionate about it. So we need to make ours as passionate, because when you look at it, there's a big disconnect, right? You ask them where they come from, the history, they don't know, right? And they deviate to other things.
Yes.
So we need to let them take pride, right? So that's the reason.
And I think this is a great platform for this. This is the beginning of the work,
Yeah,
hopefully,
right.
so we can move forward and continue this. Thank you guys so much for all that information and all that knowledge. And I think we now need to start taking it and moving forward and sharing it with our young people. Okay?
Community.
Yes.
It's cliche as it sounds.
So let me ask, and growing up, listening to you, the first thing came.
No behavior. Her name is no behavior.
The first thing came to mind when I first heard you was he just go to like song classes because he voice fine. You know, different. You know, yeah. And he will pitch and still have that clarity, you know, and that is why I'm saying too, because your voice had a certain design.
Celebrity.
So yeah, it was a signature designer, you know, the voice. So even though you sing right, you can hear and clear and crisp. Even now, that song could play on the road, and you feel that nice vibes that you don't have to split between, what is it called, the groovy soca and whatever soca kind of thing. Yeah. So you were taking classes, or that is just the voice?
And just one thing, I just want to prove what I say, that I talk so. I like to preach what a preacher say, what a preacher, whatever they say it is. So if you look in a very early issue when designer started, you will find designer in everybody's magazine of that year with Ratty Ray and so forth. He has been in a couple of the very old back issues of the magazine.
Yes. Well, most of it is natural. I did study a bit. I could read music a little bit, you know. But most of it is natural. It's really my mom. My mom, I used to sing at home with my mom, and she teach me how to sing harmony and, you know, that kind of thing.
Because I hear the jazz,
Yeah.
the R&B, the soul.
Well, that's listening to different music too. You know, I love Stevie Wonder. You know, I love them guys. I listen to all types of music. All types of music.
Country?
Everything. I think it helps you as an artist.
Yeah, it's one of those versatile singers, so you can play you anywhere. Well, that's which is good too, because we're talking about all this, and them, what we don't perceive, of course, is the point that we don't see. And we may think ourselves as being beauties, but really, we need to look at the manure and the watering and that is the children, because they will be eating these fruits.
And I think we really need to, that's what this is.
Yeah.
The children have to be inside of here. We have to attract them somehow with the music, with what, that sort of thing, and groove them in.
And
somehow.
And we're in this building, and Valerie will continue the work. She'll get her kids, the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, she'll get them here in June when we do this again. So, to be continued.
I feel like this is the genesis of this thing.
Yes.
The community, to tie all this in. The activism, the art. It's not separate. The art and activism, it's not separate.
No.
So it's really important. And the kids were eager too.
Yes,
They really were.
Yes,
They give their undivided attention. So it's important. And I think this is the kernel.
Platform, yes.
This is the kernel one.
Yes.
I'd just like to say one more thing about this question of research, which is a really good one. I think it's important that academics do this kind of heavy-duty research that ends up with a book like this, or the kind of work that Professor Sylvester is doing. On the other hand, I think we've not, I'll speak for myself and my other colleagues in the world of ethnomusicology and world music, we haven't done a good enough job in getting it out to the community. I completely agree. I'm very, as I look at this book now, I say, something else needs, a different kind of book needs to be, especially for high school kids to know their culture. In fact, there is a movement now in my academic field called decolonizing knowledge, with the ideas that we shouldn't be writing as such elitists, as you're kind of pointing out, and that we need to be writing so that our what we're researching can be get to a bigger audience. And in a way, that's why it's so important. Everybody's magazine, I mean, Herman was decolonizing knowledge before he coined the term, right? I mean, that's what this thing's about. And this is such a great model. And by the way, Herman, you're going to promise now to put this whole thing up online, digitize the whole thing, so that these young students can go back and see these beautiful articles from the 1970s. I hope that happens. But we are really aware of that, and also when we do our work, we can't just go stick a microphone in front of someone's face for 10 minutes. It's got to be done with a lot of depth and stuff. In fact, I decided the next project I'm working on is actually a pro-biography with Frankie McIntosh, the great soca producer, arranger, and it's basically his story. I want him to tell a story, not me tell a story. I'm going to kind of help him because he's not a writer, but that's what I think we as academics need to be doing now, and moving away from these kind of elite books and Oxford University Press. Anyway, so that's what I think.
Listen, I have nothing against the academics, but in my sphere of organizing, I've seen it where women, we talk about their health. Looks like that whose story has been told right here. And I'm leery of it. So on both sides of that fence.
Okay. I think we should wrap it up now. People want to hang around and talk some more, but Herman Hall, we'll thank him for being with us. Professor Megan Sylvester, designer. Thank you. And me.
And you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very informative. Thank you guys so much. So enjoyable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to get a picture.
You wanted to see his book?
Okay.
She's just going to look at it. She's just looking at it.
No, I'm just moving something to get
Yeah, that's okay.
No, that's okay. Here we are. No. This gentleman.
Oh,
this gentleman. You in the camera.
You're a star.
Mr. Hall, don't shoot.
Wait, don't move.
Here.
Don't move.
Look at her.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, don't go here, I don't want it.
Right? And you'll take one?
Your eyes are closed.
I'm sure they will. That happens all the time. It happens.